What is up, guys? Welcome. Hello. I didn't even do a ticker. I was just like, let's go live. Hopefully this is working. It is. Moderators, subscribers, members, everybody. Very interesting hearing that we're going to discuss. Remember, we talked about it. Detective Johns, did he lie or did he not lie when he took the stand at the bail hearing for Shanna Gardner? So that's the question. And Jose Baez filed a motion saying that basically he did because it was a misrepresentation of a very big, who's going to be very important in this case, a Kim Jensen, who was a friend of Shanna Gardner's, but also like, you know, when you get married to people and then like their friends become your friends, things like that. So she also knew who obviously Mario Fernandez was. But we are talking about text messages that, you guys, let's be honest. Do I think that you should be making jokes about anything to do with your ex or your significant other? Joking is one thing, but do I think that bringing up 2015 text messages for something that happened in 2022, I mean, that's some serious, like, that's a long time. That's 7 years later. But then again, they want to say, look at the outcome, and here's Jared Bridegan, he's dead. Well, I hope that people consider the past. I hope I have a lawyer, or I hope I have a judge that considers the past the way that they're considering the past. That's all I have to say. Because normally this is like, normally a judge would say like, it's too far out. It's too far out. Like this shouldn't even be, it shouldn't be used. So, but let's see what happens here at this hearing. Again, Kim Jensen. So let's see what this says. Let's see. I hope you all are doing well, very well over here. So come on, join us. This should be interesting. Let's go like this. Again, this is the Shanna Gardner case. Mauro Saldana and her they were married. They're still married. They were accused of hiring a hitman to kill Jared Bridegan. The hitman, Henry Tenon, has already confessed. And let's see. Jose Baez says this reeks, this stinks. And the interview with Kim Jensen that took place with the prosecutor and with Detective Johns, it was never recorded. So I have issue with that. You know, you're going to be interviewing a pretty powerful person in this case, and you're not going to record that. I have a problem with that. That's just horrible. That's horrible practice. That's bad practice. And you should ask yourself, why aren't you recording it? So, like, we should be asking ourselves, why didn't you record this?
Good morning.
She will go down in history, I'm telling you, as one of the best judges, in my opinion, that people are going to be talking about for cases. I think she's fair.
All right, if the attorneys will please place their appearance on the record.
Mayor Christina Stifler and Alan Mizrahi for the state.
I have it sped up a little bit.
Good morning.
Jose Baez, Patrick Rody, Rosemary Peoples, and Armando Luis, or Ms. Shanna Gardner.
All right, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Jesse Dreiser here on behalf of Mr. Fernandez, along with Shannon Day and James Hill.
Thank you. Good morning. All right.
Okay, so his attorneys are there. Her attorneys are there.
I'm going to file the order related to I'm granting the defendant's motions for protective order. And I have
So the defendant put in protective orders. Okay.
exhibits that I'm going to attach to the order, but I'm going to direct the clerk to redact the contact information before posting and filing the order. Is that agreeable with all parties? The list that you gave me. So the list of attorneys' contact information that may be contained within the electronic evidence. Additionally, I didn't know if the lawyers wanted to redact certain portions of the evidence. It seems some of the email addresses appear to be that need to be redacted for public disclosure. However, I don't know if the lawyers have any issues with the actual evidence and how it's listed as being redacted. Do you know what I'm referring to?
No, I know the list, Your Honor, that I provided the court. Is that, it sounds like there's something else that you're referring to.
Yes, let me see the lawyers that I borrowed.
All right, so we're gonna go luxury here.
Should be redacted,
Okay, here we go.
and they're going to remain and say which line numbers on the exhibits. Okay.
So again, this was defendant's motion, okay?
All right. Is there anything that the lawyers would like to take up?
On behalf of Mr. Fernandez, Your Honor, we sent over a courtesy copy. Did you receive it for a motion to set depositions of minor witnesses?
Oh, wow.
No. When did you send it? Okay.
The
Motion.
motion appears as if, we're not.
Okay, so what ends up happening here, just to, if you guys are listening at home, Marl, there's 2 minor children, and they actually said that Mario was home during this crime, that he was playing video games. Most certainly, that's what the minor child, that's the son, the boy, that's what he said. So the state, to include Detective Johns, got up and testified at the bail hearing, talking about the fact that the boy never said that. And then so Baez was like, "Are you kidding me? We'll play it again. Did you hear him say? Did you play again? Here, did you hear him say this?" He says, "I saw him. I saw him. I heard him say trigger, 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 and then he rewinded and he said, I saw him." So what the motion is Mario wants to depo the minor children, like obviously not Mario, but his attorney, and to get the depositions of the minor children. And it's really weird what ends up happening here. They're arguing about like who can be in there, who's going to be in there. So just listen to this, because I don't think that kid should ever go through something like this. And it's unfortunate.
Communicating and having difficulty.
But they were, I want to say they're 10 and 8 at the time. I'll double check that, by the way, as how old they are. And so I think they're well of age of knowing, when they were asked, what they did that night and who was there and when they were there.
It's not the case whatsoever. We have been trying to set, at the request of Mr. Fernandez's legal team, the depositions of the minor children of Jared Brightigan and co-defendant. There's no issue. No one has any objection to us setting the deposition. When we tried, and I expect this could change, but I expect that we'll appear via Zoom, at least for Mr. Fernandez's legal team. The children are in Washington. When we initially had spoke about setting it, Mr. Mizrahi said that he would like to either have a guardian ad litem appointed or something to that effect. I said, okay, that's not my fight. That's really between the mother and the grandparents and the guardians and the children. Mr. Mizrahi reached out, and at any time, please jump in. The procedure, because it wasn't really my fight, reached out to a victim advocacy or a state attorney's office or someone to that effect in Washington, and they were going to have someone sit in. Somewhere along the way, that wasn't satisfactory to the guardians of the children or to my co-counsel. I'm not exactly sure. And then I think a guardian out there said that they didn't feel, that's already the children, the guardian through the legal system didn't feel comfortable doing it. So they were going to ask the court to appoint someone. I don't know how long that will take. I don't think they have court until mid-September. it's not even that I necessarily have a problem with that. I think the guardians do. I don't think they want more people in these children's lives than necessary. And I'll let them sort of speak to that. I don't really care who is there. I just know that if we don't set a date, you know, in the legal system, the wheels turn faster when there's a deadline. So I'm really just trying to get a date and some parameters put in place as to what is best for the children so that we can ask them about the same things that CPT asked them about. I mean, it's not going to be really, I don't think, any kind of a traumatic experience for them. But I think you should either hear from the state if I didn't say anything correctly, and certainly counsel, they have the most interest in protecting these children, and I understand that. We're not at odds with that. Anything you want to add?
This is very interesting, guys.
Okay.
So
Mr. Mizrahi?
That was generally correctly stated.
there was a motion to put in to sever these two in terms of, are they going to be co-defendants? Is there going to be one trial for one and one trial for the other? So again, this is going to be a process. Jose Baez, world-renowned Jose Baez, is representing Shanna Gardner. And then Mario Saldana, that's one of his attorneys that was just speaking right there. They are estranged, but under the laws, they're still married, and that, you know, they don't have to testify against each other. They're protected, all of their conversations.
From the state's perspective, victim advocate in case is, you know, the procedure and how we do things in the course of conduct that we conduct children's depositions.
So we're going to fast forward this because he just agrees with what he's saying, that we just need to set this date. So here we go.
Names are Mr. and Mrs. Gardner. Like Shanna Gardner, during the course of the investigation, who fully gave law enforcement access to the children, the Gardners themselves are not trying to frustrate this process. They're trying to facilitate. They're willing to facilitate the appearance of the children via Zoom without any type of process, and schedule it at a time that's convenient for both the children and life. The issue here is that, as everyone can imagine, these children's lives have been turned upside down. We are trying to reduce the number of people who are involved in their lives, which is why the Gardner team reached out to the attorney who had been appointed by the court in Washington State in an ongoing guardianship case to see if that attorney would be willing to sit in during these depositions, because it is the state that is insisting that the children and the Gardner family cannot be trusted.
Objection. Yeah.
Let him finish.
I'm not going to let him. Okay.
And so that attorney, unfortunately, said that she does not feel comfortable doing it. However, based on the status of that case, there is a court hearing, I believe, today, during which she is going to ask the court to appoint individual attorneys for both children, and that she would bring my request to the court's attention. We do not know what that family law judge in Washington State is going to say about that request, because that judge has not.
Gifted memberships.
Our position on behalf of Gardner and the Gardner family with this.
Share it, baby.
These depositions, there'd be least intrusion into children's lives, and the idea of inserting one more person into their lives without exhausting all other options of who can sit in and be this third party observer. Either they're not going to agree to that. So we are trying to facilitate it. We are hopeful that these new attorneys, who also have no relationship with the children yet because they haven't been appointed.
So they just go back and forth, and they hate each other. All right. They just absolutely hate each other.
Lives in Washington State.
Understand what the difference in this particular case would be. So, for example, that there is a criminal case going on. At the same time, concurrently, there is a dependency case going on. So in those proceedings, children would have guardian ad litems appointed. They generally speaking, at least in this jurisdiction, do not participate in criminal matters sitting in on depositions. A victim advocate isn't generally a lawyer, but trained for certain situations like what we're talking about. So in your argument, Mr. Crody, you are objecting to, or at least the family is objecting to, one more person, but instead you're asking the court in Washington to appoint 2 new people.
You're not asking the court.
I thought you said it was being brought up by the lawyer.
You guys, we're going to get to the good stuff, but I just love this because I want you guys to feel this courtroom is going to be like the Karen Reed case. These people hate each other. Okay. I believe the state's been lying. Jose Baez couldn't even believe it, went out and did his own press conference. Jose Baez doesn't just go and do press conferences like that. He went out on the steps and said, I am calling my own press conference because of the behavior of the state. the prosecutors, and these detectives. All they want to do is depose the children. The children are with Shanna Gardner's family, okay? And I think that Jared's family should be seeing the children as well. And if that's not happening, then shame on Shanna and her family, because that should definitely be happening. Grandparents have rights. I'm sorry, but that's absolutely absurd. But what they're trying to say is like, if we depo the kids, okay, Shanna Gardner gets to be there for depositions. Like, I want to know how that's going to go down. Shanna would get to be there. So I would be like, I want to depo my kids every day. I want to depose my kids every day. I get to see my kids. You know what I'm saying? But she most certainly would get to be there. But Mario Saldana is the one that's wanting to depo them. Everybody's agreeing to this depo, by the way. They're just not agreeing on how many people should be there. How many people should be there. And it's just like, well, why wouldn't it just be the lawyers, the suspects, and the state? Who else are we trying to have in here? Like, what's the big problem? What's the problem here?
Investigation has been completed, the guardianship proceeding is ongoing. That lawyer is independent, is going to ask the court to appoint each child an independent attorney to represent the child's interests.
Because they believe it to be a conflict in that proceeding.
And you know what pisses me off? That shouldn't even happen. These guardian ad litems, I'm sorry, but they're just appointed. You don't know shit about these kids. And you think they get up to speed on that? You think they take time to get to know kids? That's not how our system works, unfortunately. And it's a shame. But I don't think that these kids need to be represented. I don't. I think that I get it. You can't have anybody in there coaching the kids. But if there's a school teacher, okay, that they trust, that they know, to have a teacher sit in there with them. But wild.
I think that the lawyer that I spoke to is more akin of a lawyer to the court, and that not lawyers for the individual children, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So I believe that's what's going on. That's why victim advocate services are not something that this court or anyone can force on a person.
True.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Oh, Deborah, baby. Woo! Ring my bell, baby.
And verify.
I love this
that
judge.
No one is in that room holding up signs for the children and coaching the children. Then that can probably be accomplished by someone else other than a victim advocate. The
Yes.
concern is obviously that
You don't need no victim advocate in there. Fuck all that.
And so the idea that we need to put a victim advocate in there and force this relationship that no one believes is necessary.
Yes.
In the state, we're simply not going to agree to.
Absolutely.
Typically, when I've done depositions in other locations,
Perfect. Awesome. You see how he was advocating for we don't need to have these kids. We want to subject these kids to more people that you guys want to pretend that are on your side. You don't even know these kids, man. I'm telling you, my new thing that I'm going to be looking into is our system and these whole victim advocates, but more I'm gonna guardian ad litems. I really want to look into the whole guardian ad litem way of life, because it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. Absolutely absurd. So we will be talking about all that shit. But this guy, awesome advocacy here to say they don't need to be appointed. Each child have their own lawyer or advocate or blah, blah, blah. To be injected into life. They don't know. They don't want to. Why would they want to talk to strangers? It's so pathetic.
I think by rule and statute, I'm obligated to set the deposition within the jurisdiction that the people are in.
Yes.
I generally do that
You
at
do.
court reporter's office in that jurisdiction or the courthouse. I've done both. So
That means if you want to depo me, bring your ass to Ohio.
I was imagining it would be in one of those places. There would be
These are
tailoring.
children. So generally it's in a less professional environment that's
Look at how awesome this judge is, man. You know what? She gets some bells. Woo! I love her. And what a name. London. London Kite. I bet you they were always just, when they got mad at her, they were probably like, go fly a kite. Go fly a kite in the rain.
conducive for their comfort, like in a children's room or something like that.
And
She's
I guess
awesome.
my point was, I would imagine whatever room that is, there'll be somebody in the room monitoring other than the family of the children. There'll be a bailiff. There'll be a person who runs that center. You know what I'm saying? I
Isn't
just
it
don't see it being
recorded? Isn't it
in their
just
living room. I didn't.
it's
I agree with all.
recorded?
This is why I wish we weren't discussing this in open court. We can probably solve all these issues. Everything I've heard is fine. If we do the deposition at
Okay.
the equivalent of the child protection team in Washington, I don't care who's in the room with the child, as long as we're the third place. I agree we should limit the number of people. I don't think it should be 15 lawyers in the room with the child. We all think that that's wrong. They don't have to have a relationship, but it's nice to have, there's someone there for the child in case the child has to go to the bathroom, in case the child gets upset. You'll have someone there that's taking care of the child, whoever that might be.
Right, you need a lawyer to do that. Get out of here, man. Get out of here. This is a money grab. Every way possible. It's always a money grab.
That is there as a comfort to them. I mean, we're
A
not
comfort. How's that comforting? Hey, this stranger is going to take care of you for a couple hours.
developing relationships here. We're just making sure the kids are okay. And this shouldn't be this difficult.
I think that we can find a third party.
This is what they're talking about for an hour.
A lawyer that's also disqualifies out there and says,
Gotta get that $500.
And assures the,
$500 went to this for the hour. You guys, it's so
you know,
hilarious.
on the record that no one else is in the room.
I don't understand why y'all keep saying over and over that someone else is in the room. I don't understand that.
I love her. Love her. She's like, what are you guys talking about? Someone else is in the room. This is so funny to me, guys. Watch this part. Yeah.
That's the state's concern apparently about the issue.
If I may, the child, if we're going to do this, someone's going to have to be in the room with the child, setting up the Zoom, making sure that everything's, and we're just going to leave a 11-year-old child in a room by themselves to give a criminal deposition, have lawyers ask them questions for a long time. I mean, I think that someone should be in there, especially as Mr. Carodi has represented. These children are getting services and the like. I think someone should be there to make sure that they're okay. If the child starts crying, what do we do on Zoom? Go to a breakout room? There has to be somebody there.
Go to
in
a
person
breakout
help
room
the
with
child.
it. Zoom.
And ideally, that's someone that's trained.
Usually someone says, yeah, can we just take a recess here? What is going on here? What are you guys talking about? So you're telling me the state's not flying to Washington? You guys are wanting to do a Zoom? This is such a high profile case. Get your asses on a plane. Or if it is Zoom, maybe that's actually easier. I mean, what's the problem here? Look at this judge. She's like, what are y'all doing?
And dealing with children that have undergone traumatic incidents, as Mr. Carodi has indicated.
Have you researched locations that could accommodate this?
Yes, that we were going to do it at the center, at where the victim advocate's office is. They do it all the time. This is a child protection team. I think it's primarily
11.
sex crimes, but I'm sure they do physical abuse as well.
Oh,
For
if it's-
depositions?
Yes.
Is that going to satisfy everyone?
Your Honor, my issue is that the term that the state is using is that they assign the victim advocate to the children.
I don't hear that, Mr. Crudy. I think what Mr. Mizrahi is saying is not a deposition in the home. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I don't think the deposition should be conducted in the home, but I think the deposition should be conducted with the least amount of trauma as possible to the child.
Your Honor, I would ask that I obviously can't answer.
Right. I'll let you all work this out. It sounds like it sounds to me that maybe there was a conversation that went sideways, maybe about expectations. And to me, there's a practical solution to all of this.
conversation.
Either y'all can agree in a location. It's not someone that's going to like really enter the children's lives just to facilitate a deposition. I don't see what the harm is in that. But if you do have an issue, bring it to my attention. And I also think a lot of whatever you're saying, a third person in the room, a lot of this could be solved by y'all buying a plane ticket and going out there.
I love her. I love her. Exactly. Buy a plane ticket and go out there. God bless America. Put this woman in Ohio. I mean, how logical is that? I mean, the third person in the room, this third person in the room. Well, I mean, just buy a ticket and go on out.
Right, but that puts more people in the room with the child. But anyway, we're the parties.
I mean, I don't know what this third person in the room is, but or other person in the room is all about. But so I'm going to hold this motion.
I'm going to hold it.
How about y'all get a date?
I'd get a date.
Oh, I'm trying to.
Let's get a date
Let's get a date.
today. You want me to pass it temporarily?
I've provided my dates to Mr. Dreiser.
They're the minutia that you're gonna have to hear. There's a 3-hour time zone difference. So the question is, after school is 8 p.m. for us, which is no problem. I work late all the time. Or doing it on a weekend. And I don't recall every email that was sent, but I know Ms. Stifler has a bunch of homicide trials and they prefer not to do a weekend. I think the Gardners prefer to do a weekend because it will disrupt the children and they won't be up late at night, during homework time and doing all that. So I think.
Y'all are going to get a date today.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Y'all are going to get a date today. How amazing.
I don't know what is all going on today, and I'm not sure that we intended on staying. If there was going to be a long hearing, I didn't know if you were going to do a past date or what. And I'll accept whatever past date you did.
Okay. All right. Let's focus on getting a date for the depositions.
I loved it. This could just be solved by y'all getting a plane ticket and going on out there. It's going to be solved by getting a plane ticket. Thank you. Thank you. Logic. It's such a great thing. Wowsville, right? Wowsville. Like, I don't even know. I just love it though. I love it because this is just like, y'all say you're lawyers, right? Oh, we're so much better than everybody else, right? Y'all can't pick a date? Y'all can't pick a date here? Y'all a bunch of little babies? That's what I see. No, we're all so busy. We're
Okay.
all so busy. We're all so busy. We got 50 lawyers here. How are we going to get our schedules together? I get that. I get that. Well, guess what? You're going to have to give up your golf game on the one day. Okay. Look at him.
Mr. Crody, Mr. Bias.
Yes, Judge. In reference to the hearing, we have 3 witnesses. We'd like to call them first. And then.
Okay. Jose Baez has 3 witnesses.
I'm going to take a brief recess then. You all talk amongst yourselves.
Okay. So this is amazing. So remember, this is a motion because, bail should have been granted. They're lying and, why you lying? So here we go. The first witness, you guys, we can't hear anything on Zoom. That's your first witness. And it's unfortunate, like these Zoom people, we couldn't hear. Now here's the money. This is Kim Jensen. Okay. And she's about to take the stand here. All right, here's Kim Jensen. And I don't even, if this, you guys, I'm just going to give you, this is a caution. I shouldn't say it's a caution. This is I was not expecting this to be Kim Jensen and for this to be so difficult.
Everyone in the room can hear you.
Here we go. Here we go. Oh, no.
Good morning.
I don't think
So witness
Jose's
been sworn.
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
As the witness been
Will you
sworn in.
please introduce yourself to the court? State your name.
Kim Jensen.
Wait, just so you guys know, this isn't who I think is hot or anything like that. When I say like Jose's hot, like that means like he's fired up, he's hot, he's on fire. Like he was on the steps going ham on the DA, okay, and the district attorney's office and their shenanigans. So when I said, holy shit, Jose's hot, like he's like fuming. He's pissed.
And how old are you?
But I have no
54.
issues with Jose. I'm a
And,
fan of Jose.
Where do you currently reside?
Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay. And are you currently employed?
No.
Okay. So are you a homemaker?
Yes.
All right. How do you know Shanna Gardner?
I met Shanna when
Oh,
she and Jared moved here from Connecticut, probably 10 years ago.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Sure. I met her at church when she and Jared moved to Florida from Connecticut close to 10 years ago, 9 years ago.
And did you know Jared Brightigan prior to knowing Shanna Gardner?
His family attended in our congregation, so I did know him.
Okay. And when you met Shanna Gardner, what kind of a relationship did you develop with Shanna Gardner?
Shanna and I became fast friends. She had been assigned to visit me each month in a program at the church where sisters would look out for a handful of sisters, and she had been assigned to me. And so we bonded over things like we both had a twin pregnancy. We both had a horrible pregnancy. And
you guys, I'm so confused. I grew up, went to Catholic grade school. you know, baptized, all these things. Amazing, awesome, great. And I went to church on Sundays. I have no idea what she's referring to here when she's talking about sisters and we look out for each other. I think this is like a gang. Like, so please explain to me. I mean, I just attended Sundays. Just was a kind person to people, you know, obviously learned about the Bible. But yeah, I didn't realize that there's all these, like, maybe these are just like support groups or something.
We just, you know, she was actually in the youth program, and she was working with one of my daughters. And so she and I just became fast friends.
Okay. And are there other friends or a small group of friends that you have that you share in common with Shanna Gardner?
There are.
Okay. And are these other individuals from your church?
They are.
Okay. And is there a nickname that is given to you guys that you use for this group of friends?
The Lunch Bunch.
Okay. And who came up with
That's
that
what my
name?
lesbians friends call it. The lunch bunch munch.
It might have been me. I don't really.
Okay.
Yeah, there was 8 of us, so I can't really. I really don't remember. We've been friends a long time.
Okay. And as part of, I'm assuming that as part of this bunch, you guys go to lunch. Is that
We
correct?
do lunch, brunch, breakfast. You know.
Okay. And would you describe, how would you describe the conversations that occur within this group of friends?
It was a safe place. We could talk about anything. We could be raw. We could be real. We could, you know, not have to be politically correct. If anyone was struggling with, you know, one thing or another, we could talk about it and, you know, share ideas, thoughts, whatever. And just, it was just a safe place.
And when one of you when a member of this group was going through marital issues, was that often shared within the group?
Oh yeah.
Okay. And would
It's basically a gossip.
off-color jokes or certain statements that you might not say in public, were they made in reference to another member of the Lunch Bunch's husbands? I'm trying to get to.
Oh, sure. There were more than one person that was going through a divorce at the time. Some of them were ugly. Some of them were not so ugly. You know what I mean? But, you know, we've got your back kind of a thing. We were very connected, and
We got your back. We're gonna kill your
very-
man, type of thing.
I guess just always looking for things we could do to help the other person and make things a little easier.
Just like listening to them so they could just vent. Like that's what I would be saying. Listen, we all vented, okay? Because if you don't vent, it's good to get that shit out. Because otherwise, you start taking stuff out on kid. You know, it's a good thing.
Who was the one person in this group that probably was a little looser with the tongue, for lack of a better phrase?
A little looser with the tongue.
Probably me.
Okay. Now,
Probably me.
tell us, well, let me actually get a little closer to where we're at. Did Shanna confide in you a lot of the issues she was having with her marriage with Jared?
Yes.
Okay. And did you guys give him a nickname?
Yes.
Okay. And what was that nickname?
Stupid.
Okay. And were you someone that,
So Jared's nickname when they would talk is stupid. Like, hey, how's stupid doing? Okay.
Shannon would joke with when criticizing Jared?
Yes.
Okay. And were you also someone that she would confide in as to her feelings?
Yes.
Okay. And how would you handle that type of information? You know, what would you do as a friend when she's venting or speaking poorly about her husband?
So early on, before she was divorced
Right.
I mean, it really just depended on the day. Shanna would, you know, it would,
It's
back then,
situational.
I mean, it was a long time ago. I mean, we would joke about things. We would joke about things that, you know, in any other setting wouldn't even matter. And, you know, we shared pretty much, you know, we shared a lot of things, like everything.
Okay. And what were things like for Shanna when the marriage ended?
When it ended and she was actually divorced.
Correct.
It was very difficult. Why was it very difficult? Well, prior to the divorce, their financial situation was an educational stipend that was given by their family. And Jared was in school. And when the marriage ended, that stipend ended.
When you say their family, whose family are you?
Shanna's family.
Okay.
Shanna's family provided a generous educational stipend that was utilized while he was in school. And when she got divorced, that ended. And at that time, Shanna had chosen to leave the church, and that caused a lot of hurt for her family. And so financially, she was kind of on her own, and she had 3 jobs. And, you know, this whole new transition with the children of, at that time, I think it was like 2 days, 3 days, 2 days. It was just, it was, the math was worked out to where every other weekend, one or the other parent had them for the full weekend. So one day you might have them, you know, whatever, however it worked out.
And then subsequent to that, did things change when she met? Well, take us through a little bit further in time. When did she actually meet Mario Fernandez?
I don't know,
Be approximate, it doesn't have
a
to.
couple years after she was divorced.
Okay. And then how did the situation change with Jared and the communication with the kids and things like that?
I'm not sure I understand.
Can you give us a general description of how things progressed from that point on?
From
she
the
met
time she
Mario?
married Mario?
Yes. The relationship with Jared.
The relationship with Jared really never changed. It was always bad. Communication was bad because there was never verbal communication. It was all electronic. It was either text or email. So things were often misunderstood. And I mean, they were not good at co-parenting.
Okay. And did Shanna have issues with talking to Jared?
She would have preferred to pick up the phone and, you know, but it was him. He was adamant that there would be no verbal contact.
Okay. Now, I want to take you to 2022.
Okay, the year of the murder.
You were, I guess, were you close to Shanna when Jared was killed?
Our friendship?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And during this time, what was life, shortly after he was killed, what was life like for Shanna during that whole time?
Everything was focused on the kids, their well-being, their mental health, you know, increasing therapy appointments, giving them, you know, space to grieve, and,
Welcome, new member.
you know, just
Woo.
making sure she spent a lot of time talking with the guidance counselor at school. Everything was just focused on the children.
Okay. Prior to Jared passing away, was it already established that Mario Fernandez and Shanna Gardner were going to get a divorce?
Yes.
Okay. And what types of things were being planned out for that?
They had made a plan that I don't remember what month they actually told the kids they were getting divorced, but they had made a plan that they would let them know what was happening, but that they would continue living in the home together until school was out so that it wouldn't disrupt.
Okay. Now, did you cooperate with the investigation in this case?
Yes,
Okay. So when the police asked you to come to the police department and make a statement, did you do that?
I did.
And they sat you in a room and you had conversations with the detectives in this case?
Yes.
Okay. And subsequent to that, what type of contact did you have? Well, let me ask you this. How many times did they ask you to come in and talk to you?
Okay.
The first time was, I don't know, 3 or 4 months after the murder. And
Oh,
then
wow.
again, the following year in January, I think.
Oh, that's the one that's
Okay.
not recorded.
And then did there come a time where you were asked to testify before the grand jury?
Oh,
Yes.
Okay. When was that?
February.
February.
Last year, 23.
Okay.
Ooh,
And-
grand jury time. I love grand juries.
Did you comply with the subpoena and go and testify?
I did.
Okay. And prior to going in to testify, did you have any contact with any of the prosecutors in this matter?
I did.
And who did you communicate with?
When I got there, I believe Ms. Stifler was the one that greeted me. And And then they put me in a room and told me that I would be there until I was asked to come in. Mr. Mizrahi.
ADA Stifler, baby. Give it up for ADA. Come on, Stifler. When are you going to ever have a damn district attorney or assistant district attorney named Stifler? Come on. Love it. One of the reasons I'm covering the case. ADA Stifler, come on up here. Stifler's mom
Came in and spoke with me.
Okay.
Before we get to that conversation, I want to ask you about this. What was your relationship
Adorable.
like prior to the grand jury with law enforcement?
I didn't really have a relationship with them. I talked to them twice. They said it was victimology.
Victimology, baby.
Used to say things like, you have the unique position of knowing Jared and Shanna and Mario. You know what I mean? Just, I didn't really think anything of it.
Was it ever contentious prior to the grand jury?
No.
Okay. What about your relationship with Ms. Stifler and Mr. Mizrahi? Was that ever contentious prior to the grand jury?
No, I didn't have a relationship with them prior to the grand jury.
Okay, so was that the first time you met them?
Yes.
Okay. And then what occurred when, after you met Ms. Stifler and then you met Mr. Mizrahi?
Mr. Mizrahi, I was in the room alone.
He's a lawyer.
I was quite nervous. I didn't know what to expect.
He's the guy that was standing up doing the arguing at the beginning. That's that lawyer. The female is Stifler. So after the grand jury, then this is what happens.
Never done anything like that. He came in the room, told me how important this was, that that they knew things that I didn't know they knew, that I was in a lot of trouble, that I had to tell the truth.
Let me stop you there. You said,
Oh, shit. They told me that I was in a lot of trouble. You guys, this is unfucking believable, right?
that you were in, did you say he said you were in a lot of trouble?
Yes, that I could be in a lot of trouble from this. Gave me some statute about if you lie to a grand jury, you could go to jail for 30 years. You know, it was very, I didn't go in feeling comfortable. How about that?
Say that again.
I didn't go in feeling comfortable. My nerves were like you know what I mean? I was very nervous. I didn't know what they were going to ask me. I didn't know why I was there specifically in relation to the murder because I didn't have anything to do with anything.
Okay. So why did you not go in there feeling comfortable?
Why would I be called in there?
Well, like I said, it was an uncomfortable situation, and I was made to feel more uncomfortable with, you know, Mr. Mizrahi made me feel more uncomfortable.
Okay.
It was the tone, it was the, you know what I mean? And I was scared. I'll be honest. I was scared going into this because I didn't know what was happening exactly.
Was his conversation with you
scared.
one that he was just being informative, or was it more than that, or different? Describe to us. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Tell us how you would describe his interaction with you.
Well, I mean, that was the basic interaction prior to going into the grand jury. Post, I went into a room yet again, and he told me that he knew it was uncomfortable. He thanked me for coming. He knew it was an uncomfortable situation, and that it was very intimidating, but that was his job because when you're uncomfortable, you say things that you wouldn't normally say, I think is how he put it.
Okay. Did he give himself a name to
No.
describe
No, not-
the situation of being uncomfortable? Or
He said that he used words like intimidation, and you know that and when you were intimidated and you're uncomfortable, you say things that you wouldn't normally say, and that's why it had to be that way.
okay.
Oh my God.
So
Okay, I just want to know from you guys. I have 130 people in here. I know you guys may be just listening and you're not like in chat or whatever. But how many people so far are you guys believing her? Is she believable? Do you think that she's telling the truth? Because that's going to be a big thing here. Is she believable? Write it in chat if you're listening, or just keep on not listening.
did you find it
I
intimidating?
mean, keep on listening, but you don't have to write in chat.
Inside while he was questioning you before the grand jury?
I did. It was very frustrating.
Okay. Were you ever accused of lying or not being straightforward?
Yes,
Okay. How many times?
maybe once or twice. I can't really remember.
Okay. And did you ever feel confused at any point in time?
Yes, because there was a constant hammering of they wanted to know exactly you know, when did this happen? When was this said? What, and I couldn't, I was nervous. You know what I mean? My watch is going off for my heart rate. Like it was very, it was an uncomfortable day.
My
And it
heart
was a
rate's going
long day.
crazy.
Okay. So now let's fast forward a little bit to the
Wow.
next time you had contact with law enforcement and the prosecutors. When was that approximately?
Together or law enforcement, just by themselves?
Either one.
So the grand jury was in February, and in April, they had a search warrant for my phone. They
Okay.
took my phone and my watch in April.
And you gave those to them?
I did.
Okay. And then subsequent to that, when's the next contact you had with any one of them?
Next time was in July of last year.
Okay.
Oh.
And tell Judge Kite what happened in July of last year.
Oh, wow.
I was leaving my neighborhood, and the officers were pulling in. I recognized the Explorer, and I kind of saw him, and I thought that it was Detective Johns. And so I pulled out of the neighborhood, and they flipped around and followed me to the red light. And once I proceeded through the red light, they flipped their lights on. I pulled into the Publix parking lot,
Oh, God.
and they told me that I needed to come with them to speak with the state attorney's office.
What? No, I don't.
And were you free at the moment and fine and ready to go, or?
I was not. I told them I wasn't actually dressed appropriately. I was actually headed to the gym. They told me it didn't matter. They need to speak with me now, and that they were going to drive me there and bring me back to my car as soon as I was done. And I said, you know, that I wasn't comfortable with that. I asked to call my husband. I did. He's like, why would you ride with them? He's like, are you under arrest for something? And I asked him, and he said, oh no, we're going to leave your car here. You're going to come with us. I'll drive you there, drive you back. And I said, I'm going to drive my own car. And he gave me a whole big spiel about parking and how difficult it was, and that he had a subpoena that he didn't want to use, but that he would. It was an arsenal in his, or a tool in his arsenal, or something to that effect. And so I said, well, if that's what you have to do. And so he gave me the subpoena, and, you know, then he told me that it had to be, you know, he was going to get in front of me. He was going to be the lead car. And, you know, then the other car was, since I was sandwiched in, you know, we're doing the O.J. Simpson thing, going down the freeway, and we end up here.
Okay. And what occurred when
What the
you
fuck
got
is
to the state
going
attorney's
on?
office? Where did you go?
I was in a conference room, or I was put in a conference room.
You guys, this is the July unrecorded. So this is everything that's leading up to this July unrecorded interview. Okay. That Johns was on the stand saying all of this shit that she said, but it's not recorded. So you need this person. She's so important. You need her right now, and you don't record this conversation?
There were blown up text messages.
Let me stop you there. Okay. You're put into a conference room,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
And who was in the conference room with you when they brought you up to the conference room?
Nobody. I was put in the conference room alone.
But what did you see while you were alone in the conference room?
So it was a long table. I was sitting at it, and there was several blown up text messages between me and probably, I want to say 3, 4, I don't know, between me and the girls.
When you say blown up, how big?
I don't know. Like half a poster? I don't know, maybe.
Half a poster size? Okay.
Maybe. I mean, big enough that you could see it without, you know, squinting. And then there was another board there was like a board on the side that had a picture of Shanna and Mario and Henry Tenen and me on there.
Her.
And what did it say?
What?
I think it said something like conspirators or conspiracy to murder or co-conspirators, maybe it said. It's like it was done in a circle. Like,
What was your reaction to seeing a
What?
poster at the state attorney's office with your photo alongside Henry Tenen, Shanna Gardner, and Mario Fernandez?
I was very taken back because
I'd have been like,
I
give me a
just-
lawyer
it-
now.
I was very taken back. I couldn't imagine where they were going with this because, you know, I was just Shanna's friend.
Okay. Tell Judge Kite what happened next.
Mr. Mizrahi came in, told me to take in the room and they would be there shortly.
Take
I don't know, I
in
was
the
in there
room.
by my-
Take in the room. We'll be in here. Take it all in. We'll be in there shortly. Take what in? I gotta go. Get me out of this room right now. Take this in. Are you kidding me?
myself 15 or 20 minutes and I was just reviewing everything. And then the prosecutors came in and told, you know, they said they were sit down, we were going to have to talk to questions. And Mr. Mizrahi asked me if I knew why I was there. And I said,
Why? No.
detective said you had some questions. And he said that the police wanted to arrest me and take me to jail.
And were the police there right in that room? Who was in the room alone?
Not at that time. I was just in there with Mr. Mizrahi, Ms. Stifler, and I think there was someone else.
So Stifler, this dude.
Okay. Was that another member of the state's attorney's office? Do you know?
I guess. I don't know.
And after he told you that the police wanted to arrest you, how did you react? What did you say? What?
I said, for what?
For
Okay.
what?
And what happened after that?
It was another series of questions. They showed me that, the text messages were there and, this is pretty damning. This doesn't look good.
Let me stop you there. So they began to question you about your text messages?
Yes.
Okay. And while you're giving answers to your responses to these text messages, did you ever see a recording device?
No.
Did you believe you were being recorded?
I mean, I really didn't think
true.
about that, to be honest. You know what I mean? Like, I knew that when I spoke with the police that, you know what I mean, they would have a transcript or whatever. I mean, I really didn't know what their setup was. I guess it was possible, but I'm not sure that I really
I thought about it.
thought about that.
And did you write down your answers to the questions that they were asking you about your text messages?
No.
No.
And if there's a dispute about what you said in response to the questions about the text messages, was there anyone else other than you and the 3 members of the state attorney's office? Is there anybody else there that would be able to verify that?
I mean, we were the only ones in the room, so no.
Okay. And then what happened next?
They asked me about the text messages, and and the text messages, and then additional questions that they asked.
Okay. What happened after that? How long did that last, actually?
I don't know. I think I got in there around 8:30 or 9 o'clock, and I don't think I left till after 1.
Okay.
Because I had an appointment at 12:30 that I missed. So I know it was after 1 or 1:30 before I left.
Damn.
So what I mean is, how long were you alone in the room with the prosecutors?
Oh.
Couple, 3 hours maybe.
Okay. And during that time, was it a friendly conversation? Was it contentious? Describe, take us into that room if you can, and describe the conversations between you and the prosecutors.
At times it had gotten very contentious. They got very frustrated with me. I'm trying to recall I can't remember the order, but there were questions about the text messages, and I would try to explain. Like for example, the one was.
We'll get into the specifics in a moment. I'm just trying to get a little bit more of the atmosphere.
All right.
So at what point did the police come into the room?
Police didn't come in until probably maybe an hour before I was able to leave. It might have been a little longer than that, but they called it a roundup, that they wanted to go over everything and all the questions that they had asked me and have them be able to participate and hear what we had talked about, I guess.
Okay.
This is wild as fuck,
Was
man.
it word for word or not?
No, it was like a summary.
Okay.
It was like a summary.
Got it. And it was
Round
as
'em up,
detailed
baby.
as you had gone over with the prosecutors or not?
Some things were, I guess, maybe. Not everything.
This
I mean, it was
child's
more of a
gonna be off
summary.
the
It wasn't,
hook.
I mean, I was in there with them for 3 hours, you know what I mean? And so no, it wasn't as detailed.
Okay. Now, subsequent to that happening, did you have any other interactions with law enforcement? Subsequent to the July meeting at the prosecutor's office? When's the next time you saw someone from the prosecution team or
So this was July of
law enforcement?
2020.
Well, today's the first time I'm seeing the prosecution team since the July meeting. And law enforcement, I only had one other encounter with them. They came to my home the week in May of this year, before the hearing that was in May.
So before the Arthur hearing,
Yes.
they came to your house?
Yes.
How
What?
many days before the Arthur hearing?
I know, I think they came on a Friday, and I'm not sure what day
Wait
of
a
the week
second.
that hearing was.
Now, the rest of this part I did not watch. I watched up to this point. As I wanted to be surprised for a little bit on my live. Because I was just like, holy shit, I cannot right now. I cannot right now. I cannot right now. Okay. Because this was going to be the state's either co-conspirator or one of its star witnesses, basically. Okay. And you don't record this. They record all of these. They had wiretappings for people in this case. They couldn't record it, not because of her answers, you guys. They couldn't record it because of their tactics. Their tactics. And this is absolutely fucking disgusting to me. Period. Period. Because you shouldn't have to do this. Okay. Why would you have to do this? You have a guy, they want to do this so they can get Gardner, or to attempt to get Gardner. You have a guy that admitted to the killing and that he got paid by Mario Saldana. He said that he never talked to Shanna Gardner ever. He didn't even really know her at all. He just knew that that dude was married. You know what I mean? So you want to try to, now I think Mario's crazy, to be honest, but you have like, you were tapping her phone, you were tapping Mario's phone, like meaning like Gardner's phone. You have all their phone records. You have this, you have that. I mean, this is illegal.
Did they tell you the purpose of their visit,
They did.
which was?
They told me that the state had sent them. They wanted me to know that my name was going to be mentioned in the hearing. And I said, why? Like, I was confused. It was a bond hearing. I didn't really understand the purpose. You know what I mean? I knew what a bond hearing is, but I didn't really understand why I would be relevant to that. And they said that it was a mini trial. And so
okay, listen to this. She has no idea. So last time she saw these people was in July of 2023. Shanna Gardner is then arrested in August of 2023, by the way. And they made a big scene about it. Went in there SWAT style. And she was over there living in Tallahassee and in Savannah saying, hey, if you guys are going to be arresting me, I'm over here. This is where I'm at. Like, please do not do anything in front of my children. Okay? Like, so they don't do anything. They testify completely differently to act like we had no idea what she, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, her lawyer went straight to them. It's just a bunch of just lies. I fucking hate liars. You so big, you so bad. Say the truth and roll with it. Let's go, yo. There's kids involved. They've already lost her dad. And you want this girl to be the one so bad. But maybe Mario did it on his own to then be able to trap the girl from not leaving him. Maybe she married a fucking crazy person. Okay. But you can't just go doing stuff like this to try to then get an arrest. Because the evidence isn't there.
my name would be brought up, and they wanted me to know.
Did they try to educate you a little bit more about what was going to occur?
No, they said it was a mini trial, and
all bond hearings are.
and I
They're
said,
awesome.
and you're telling me that the state sent you here as a courtesy to me? And
For
they
what?
said, yes, that the state wanted to make sure that I was happy and healthy and safe. And I said, why wouldn't I be safe? And they said, well, we don't have any credible intel that you're not, but if you don't feel safe in any way, if anyone's following you, if someone vandalizes your home or your cars, we want you to call us. And even though we're not in your jurisdiction, we'll work with the people who are to make sure that you're safe. And
What?
it was the oddest.
Did that concern you, that the police were telling you
Yes.
you might not be safe?
Well, the whole conversation was odd, but that especially like it gave me pause. Like, what do you know? Like, what, you know what I mean? Why would I be unsafe? It didn't make any sense to me.
Did they insinuate or tell you that
Hi, Lady Leo.
whose fault it would be that your name was being mentioned?
The defense.
They did. I said, I asked them, how involved is my name going to be in this? And they said that, that Shanna's attorneys had unsealed the grand jury, and that, that was that was that was their doing, not the state's doing. And that, so testimony could be used from that. And
Wow. Fucking liars.
that, that it basically was just a mini trial.
Did they make any,
Mini trial, exactly. That's exactly what it is. That's why you always want to get your bail hearing. Fight for your bail. It's a mini trial. But how about this? Wait, that's a lie. Yeah, they unsealed the grand jury. Of course, they're looking through stuff. Of course, but that has nothing to do, absolutely nothing to do with why her name was going to be brought up. Absolutely nothing to do with it. It had to do with Detective John's shit and testimony.
negative statements about Shanna's defense?
Not just in general conversation. Detective Johns asked me if I had any questions at the end of this little conversation that we had. And I said I did. I said I wanted to know if they had any idea when this would actually end. When will there be a trial?
Oh.
And Detective Johns said that it had been their hope that there would be a plea deal, but because of Shanna's choice of attorney, that all these motions would be filed and this would be drug out, and they didn't see it going to trial before the end of 25 or the beginning of 26.
Holy shit. I love it, you guys. We're just getting all the tea. Guess who I'm going to try to get on my channel? You know it, Kim Jensen. We're going to make sure that she's protected, but more importantly, we're going to get up for Kim Jensen. She's a stay-at-home mom. She is a homemaker. I love how Jose Baez put it. She's a homemaker. Awesome. This is wild that we were hoping for a plea deal. But Shanna's choice of attorney is going to drag this all the way out and blah, 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 blah. Dude, this is unbelievable. This is the star witness. This is their star witness. This is amazing to me because this is everything I preach on this channel. This happens every day in every case. And we have rights. We have rights. And this is why, I'm sorry to say it, this is why the Black people don't talk to cops. And you know what? I learned it in Aliquippa and said, you know what? You're damn right. I'm never saying another word. I have nothing to say to a police officer, ever. In fact, when I walk past police officers, I tell them, thank you for your service. Because I teach my son that. Thank you for your service. Thank you for choosing to be a police officer. Thank you. But I have nothing to say to you, ever, other than that. Nothing. Because it's no longer protect and serve, okay? That motto has gone away. And it's so freaking bad. But the Black community is right. Like, they're like, don't you call the police? We don't call the police. Are you kidding me? Someone's gonna get shot if you call the police. And that's reality. Like, you don't, and if you look like you're talking to the police and it looks like you're snitching, but we don't call the police because then they got to twist stuff. We don't call, then someone's going to jail. And I'm just like, listen to them and the way that when I was in Aliquippa listening to the community, and I'm like, dude, they're so right. They're so fucking right. This community is so right.
Was he referring to Mr. Cox or myself, Mr. Perotti? Oh,
He was referring to you. There was no Mr. Cox at that time. He said that you had the reputation of being a mudslinger, and that this would be everyone's fault except for Shanna's.
okay. And subsequent to that, what happened next? Did you watch the Arthur hearing?
Oh, I did.
Okay. And did you see Detective Johns testify
A mudslinger.
during that hearing?
Oh, wait, hold on.
And during that
Hold on. This is going to be the best part. I got to ring my bell. You can ring my bell. Ring my bell.
hearing, did you see the statements that were made in reference to you
I did.
and how he characterized your statements?
I did.
Okay. I want to kind of go through some of those statements with you. Now,
Damn.
Detective Johns stated to you, well, okay, look, I'm sorry, strike that. When Detective Johns stated that well, first I wanted to talk about Susan Lee.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. Before I get to the Arthur hearing, I wanted to ask you about the meeting with the prosecutors. When they confronted you with the text messages about Susan Lee, what did you tell them?
I told him it was a long-standing inside joke.
Okay, explain that. Why is it a joke?
So the hitman joke was a joke between Susan and I years before I even knew.
Okay, so who's Susan Lee? Susan Lee testified, but Susan Lee was one of the Zooms. Okay, so unfortunately, you couldn't even make it out. I tried it. Well, actually, I will tell you guys, I'm kind of good at what I do. I ordered the transcripts. And then I said, wait a second. I bet you Jose Baez has the transcripts. Why don't I just ask him if he would be so kind to see if Shanna would share the trial transcript so I don't have to pay? A single mother like myself, I want to put out the truth. And do you think maybe you guys could just cuff up the trial transcript so that I don't have to pay? Do you guys have any idea how much transcripts cost? Let me tell you, they ain't cheap, okay? So, and boy, poof, my request was granted. Thank God I know how to just write a little email and say, burp. So what she's about to testify to here is someone that was part of the group chat, okay? So there you go. Yeah, $1,500, and that's for expedited. This is where you work smarter, not harder, right? Because trying to get your hands on all these cases, if someone just approves you, or if they already have something and they're willing to just send me the PDF, you know, I'm willing to donate money to like a charity that you like, but I can't be paying them $1,500 for every case. Like that's just, when I get to, 100,000 subscribers and stuff like that. But it's a lot of money. So, it is. All right, let's go back to play here.
Shanna, Susan used to, and I've known Shanna, I've known Susan for 25 years.
25 years, okay.
So we've got a lot of history and a lot of inside jokes, but Susan worked for a member of the church who employed lots and lots of people. And she was his personal assistant, executive assistant. I don't know what her title was, but anyway, some years, probably 20 years ago, he asked her if her husband knew any hitmen, and she was taken back. And, when she got off work, the first thing she did was call me and say, "You won't believe what he asked me." And it became this just, anytime we heard the word, anytime, it could be watching a TV show, it could be in any context, it would elicit a phone call, a text, whatever, because we were laughing about it, that did he seriously think that her husband actually
But no, a hitman.
know a hitman? You know what I mean? Anyway, so it was that kind of a thing that just, so anytime we had the opportunity and heard about it.
Was Miss Stifler present when you gave this explanation? Or did she walk out of the room at any point in time? She didn't. I'm just curious if she missed that explanation of the joke.
No, nobody walked out of the room.
Okay. And what
She
was her
oral
response after you?
The reason he's asking about Stifler there is because she was oral arguing and asking the questions to Detective John and leading the whole time during their the bail hearing, which is called an Arthur hearing. You know how there's like a Frank's hearing? Well, the bail is Arthur hearing. Okay, helping you guys out. So yeah. So that's why he was wondering, oh, did ADA Stifler just happen to take a shit break? Did she have gas? Did she have a colonoscopy during this time that you're explaining this?
You explained this joke.
I think Mr. Mizrahi said something like, so you're telling me that the next time I see you, it's going to be with your attorney and you're going to explain to a jury that this is a joke or something to the effect that it was ridiculous for me to say that these things were a joke when in fact it actually was. And the joke had nothing to do with Shanna. And it was years before I even met Shanna that, you know what I mean? I mean, I understand that the word sounds bad, but in the context that it was something that we had joked about for many years before I even knew Shanna.
Okay.
Unbelievable.
So
And you know what? If that's true, right? Or if she's lying, see how far you can go back to get those records to see if it exists. But guess what, guys? 2 people are testifying to the same thing. Kim Jensen and the Lee woman, okay? Before she ever even knew Shanna Gardner, this conversation and this joking about him, and you know why this is gonna be so fucking crazy? Because she's married to an African American male, and African Americans are so bad. You know, oh yeah, so I bet your friend knows a hitman, right? Because I bet your man knows a hitman because you be black. You know, once you go black, you can't go back, girl. Why don't you find me that hitman, girl? That type of talk.
when you heard Detective Johns describing those text messages, did you hear him describe what your explanation to those texts were?
No.
Okay. Did you feel he gave an accurate description about those text messages as it related to Susan Lee finding a hitman for Shanna?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I couldn't even believe it.
Would you
I couldn't even
characterize
believe it.
those statements as false or true?
I would characterize them as false in that the context was, I mean, the statements were there in print, but they were being inserted into a theory and not in the context that they actually occurred.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, is there anything else you could tell Judge Kite about those text messages or your explanation to the prosecutors and the police as to what they actually meant?
Oh, why be so nosy? Thank you for the cash app. Woo!
As far as the one between Susan and I?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Let me ask you this question because I think it might come up. Did you have, after the Arthur hearing, did you have any contact with Susan Lee?
No, I have not spoken with Susan.
Okay, so the 2 of you never spoke and said, hey, wasn't that crazy or anything like that?
I've not spoken to Susan. I have intentionally distanced myself from anyone who might be on a text message that had anything to do with anything to try to keep the circle as small as possible instead of dragging more people into a mess.
And when you saw Detective Johns mischaracterizing what you said in those text messages, did that concern you? What was your reaction to that?
It was concerning because the way that he was portraying me, it was if I was involved in something that is completely untrue. I was not involved in any part of any of this. I was frustrated in that, I had tried to explain things and, clearly.
Can you imagine this whole 4 fucking hours not being recorded that is like so important to your case if you're the state? But you can't show a big old conference room lit up with blow up text messages and then Kim Jensen's picture in a big circle next to Shanna Gardner, next to Mario, and next to Henry Tenon. And mind you, at that time, Shanna Gardner was not arrested yet. And so it was just Henry Tenon, and that happened in January of 2023. Then they went and arrested Mario Saldana in March of 2023. And then that meeting in July of 2023. And then in August of 2023, about a year from right about now, they SWAT team into Shanna's place in Washington, and they extradite her from Washington to Florida. And here the whole time she was saying she was living and putting herself accessible after the March date of when they took down Mario, because she's like, oh my God, it's just going to be a matter of time till they come for me. And I can't believe this. And blah, blah, blah. Like, I can't have my kids around this. This is crazy. Here, like, had a lawyer, and the lawyer contacted the ADA and said, and the police and said, hey, we saw that you arrested Mario. If you're going to be attempting to arrest my client, this is where she'll be. We please do not do anything around the children. If you guys are even going to try this, not saying that they're not trying to say, hey, I'm guilty, come get me. It was like, if you are even going to try to arrest me and include me in any of this, please do it away from my children. And what do?
They weren't explained in a way that
Not that.
I felt like he was taking information from two years worth of
All over the
whatever
place.
interviews or whatever from multiple people. And I felt as though some of them weren't even my words. They were just kind of mushed into his testimony, like he was trying to go from memory on all of these things. Some things
Sounds
were
like a
inaccurate.
mother
All right,
request.
we're going to go over those.
That sounds like a mother request. So like, I always try to look at people, how they are like as a parent, how they treat their parents, how they are as a parent, how they treat older people, how they treat babies, and how they treat special needs. If you ever want to know about a person, pay attention to how they treat the parents, elderly people, babies that they don't know, special needs. And how they are as a parent. That's everything that you'll ever need to know about right in here. And to me, that was a motherly request. And they just went in there, literally guns blazing, SWAT style takedown, body cams. And she didn't want any of that, but they wanted it. You want to know why? Because it makes her look
individually in a
guilty.
moment, but
It makes Shanna Gardner look guilty. You're already poisoning the well. And that's fucking sick to me, man.
let me just ask you outright. Did you ever contact Susan Lee on behalf of Shanna Gardner to try and get her husband to find a hitman for Shanna Gardner?
I did not.
Okay.
Thank you.
Was that even remotely your intent when you were texting her about her husband?
Absolutely not.
Oh, disgusting.
And was it just simply a joke?
It was simply a joke that had nothing to do with Shanna.
Okay. Then why did you, I'm just kind of curious, then why did you say Shanna needs a guy and then mentioned about a magician and all that?
Because Susan's role in our little friend group and in the church, Susan was in charge of the women's group. It's called the Relief Society. She had stewardship over all of the women in the church. And so she had an interest in Shanna. She was part of my group, my friend group. So she had intimate knowledge of Shanna and Jared and their marital issues and then the divorce. And she moved away at some point. I can't remember what year she moved, but she moved away, and she would often contact me and say, how's it going? And I was like, oh, things are going good this week. Nothing really happened. Or, oh, it's one of those weeks. She needs a guy. And I would say it in that way, just so that she knew it was a bad week. And that's just how I spoke to her. That's just how I spoke to her.
Now, when Detective John stated that there were multiple conversations over a multi-year period about Mario killing or finding people to kill Jared, please explain to Judge Kite why that statement is false. Did you hear that statement?
Woo!
Actually, I should ask you first.
I heard the statement.
Okay. Was it true or false?
False.
Explain to Judge Kite why that statement is false.
I love how Jose Baez is saying, explain to Judge Kite. Okay. Let me tell you how this is going to play out, guys. It's going to play out one of two ways, which is going to be great for the defense. It's either going to play out that she's deemed credible, and that means that the lawyer, aka ADA Stifler, and Detective Johns that means that they're going to be deemed not credible and misconduct. Okay. Or worst case scenario. So that's your best case scenario, that the judge believes her. Okay. The judge believes her. And then if you're going to deem her credible, that means you only have the alternative, which is Detective Johns is not credible. And ADA Stifler and Mercetti is, they committed misconduct. Okay. That's your best case. Now check out what your worst case is. Your worst case is that she's deemed not credible, which means that everything that she would have ever said or will say in the future it's not credible. And this is their star witness. This is the state's star witness. Because remember, They thought that Shanna Gardner would take a plea deal. And now that I know that a plea deal was on the fucking table, what was the plea? What was the plea? What were you going to offer? And they were offering a plea deal because they can't have all this stuff come out. Well, guess what? It's coming out. Okay. And so that's like literally it's a lose-lose for the state, is my point. Is that your best case scenario, she's deemed credible, and that means that your detective, lead detective in this case, is not going to be credible, and misconduct on prosecution's point or spot, or this woman is deemed not credible, and that's the state's star witness against Shanna Gardner. Genius, if you ask me, Jose Baez. But the reason that that's ever even occurred in the first place is because of the tactics and then the lying on the stand by that man, Detective Johns. His first homicide ever worked is this case. Why in the world would you give a first case detective this homicide? I think that's incompetence. I think the incompetence goes up one step of Detective Johns. That's what I think. I think you have to look at who assigned Detective Johns to this case and hold them responsible just as much as Detective Johns.
Because I did not say that Mario
What's
was going
up,
to kill
Baker?
anyone. I was trying to explain,
Baker?
and I believe this all began in the grand jury. Am I allowed to say that? Am I allowed to say something that was said there?
If you can leave.
It's objection to hearsay. Sidebar.
That's not correct. The state keeps saying this is unsealed. There's a very clear Florida statute on point that I believe the state even violated by showing the grand jury to Detective Johns. And your order only released it to the defense team.
Ooh!
Our lawyers and staff.
Hold on. Let me see y'all at sidebar, okay?
Sidebar, yep. I love the judge, you guys. Okay, right there, that's ADA Stifler. Her hair right there, that's her. There's Judge London Kite. Now, Jose Baez's team, this isn't just Jose Baez, okay? Man has, seriously, they're taking up 6 spots, y'all. Including Gardner is in one of the 6 spots, is what I've counted. So he brought a team of 5 up in there. Watch them all gather. Oh, man. I got to show it to you at a different point. Okay. Right there. Right there. I love her. I'm not going to tell you guys who she is, who Shanna Gardner's talking to right now. I'm not going to tell you. My favorite of his team. Right there. Nothing but a strong black woman. Love it. Love it. Smart. Kind. And she's basically like Karen Reed had Alan Jackson, had Yannetti. Who else did he have? Who else? Karen Reed had a very, very, very important person on her team that will probably never get the credit that she deserves. And Shanna Gardner has the same. They're coming back from sidebar. Saba. Yeah, there you go. Kate's like, I'm going to say it. I'm going to say her name. Liza. Time for bed. Have a great stream, y'all. Oh, that's right. We're so opposite times. That's right. Shout out to Broken Baker. If you haven't gone over there, we did a stream for Karen Reed. We plan to do more. Good dude over there. Yeah, the guy next to her now. Yeah, he's a cutie. He's a cutie patootie. Anyways, let's go ahead. I'm gonna go through this.
We may proceed.
Okay. Ms. Jensen, if we can avoid talking about what you actually said at the grand jury, let's try that, okay? If you feel you can avoid it with your answer, we'll take a break and figure that out, okay? So let me go back and ask
So he's
you.
going to try to get so she
Do
doesn't
you understand what he's saying to you?
not to repeat specific things that were discussed in the grand jury. There are several pieces of this that were discussed in multiple
Answer my
places.
question.
Yes,
Do you understand what he said to you? Yes or no?
yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So let's go back to the question or the issue at hand.
How fair was that? No, I asked you a question. This is how you have to pay attention when judges and magistrates talk to you, and they ask you a question. Yes or no? They ain't looking for no explanation. Do you understand what he's saying to you? Our human instinct is to go elsewhere, though. You always have to just answer the question that they're asking you, and then you could say no, and then more elaboration can happen. So, and if you're not sure, you could say, I'm not sure. But they're always usually looking for a yes, no first, and then you proceed from there.
Detective Johns testified that there were multiple conversations over a multi-year period about Mario killing people or finding people to kill Jared. About Mario killing Jared or finding people to kill Jared. Please explain to us why that statement is false. Why you did not tell them that.
The reason that it is false is because through interviews with both the prosecution and the police department, they asked me questions about Mario. I told them that Mario had a very large personality. He was famous for shock value statements, and that he had this one particular line that he would say repeatedly, which is, do you want me to take care of it? Or do you want me to take care of him? Do you want me to take care of it? And that could be anything. It could be from a kid on the playground with one of the kids. It could be him overhearing a conversation between Shanna and I. He said it to me about my daughter was having an issue with somebody in college, and he said, do you want me to take care of it? It was just, that was his phrase. And I believe it was Miss Stifler who said, you mean kill him? But those were her words. Those were not my words. I never said kill him.
When she said, you mean kill him, what was your response to that question or that statement?
I don't remember what my response was, but probably no. I mean, that's what he said. Take care of him. I don't know that there was a lot of.
And did you explain to the prosecutors and law enforcement that that was just a catchphrase of his and that essentially didn't mean anything to you?
Right. It came. I mean, he was a big talker. He was full of it all the time, and I never believed anything he said. And it was never. I never felt that he ever said those words with the intent of harming anyone.
So, if there are children playing in the playground, and you use that as an example, explain to us how he would say, "You want me to take care of it?" Tell me about how that catchphrase coordinates with something completely different than murdering someone.
So, if the kids came home and said, so and so on the playground was bothering me or picking on me or whatever, his line would be, "You want me to take care of it?" And he was famous for, there was a group chat between both households with both sets of parents, and he always loved to be the first one to answer no matter what the context was. And and Shanna would always get upset with him and say, don't, just don't. And it just, so as far as the playground goes, I mean, it's just, there was a kid bothering one of Shanna's kids, and we take care of it. And it was like, no, I got it. We're good. So it was just, that was just an example of how it was used in all areas. That was just like his phrase.
Everybody
You didn't
knows
understand
it.
to mean he was going to go kill one of the kids, did you?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Everybody knows somebody like that. That's always like, you want me to take care of that? You want me to take care of that? Like my neighbor's being a fucking asshole. You want me to take care of that? So everybody knows people like that.
Okay. Now, I want to move on to another statement by Detective Johns. Now, he testified that you made a statement about Mario having a motorcycle gang go and kill Jared. Or,
what?
Well, there's two parts to that question I want to ask you, but let's start with the motorcycle gang. Tell Judge Kite, was that an accurate statement? And if not, why is that false?
In one of the questions that I was asked about Mario, I had told them that he made shock value statements, and one of them, and they said, "Can you give us an example?" And I said, "Well, I think he's, one time he said that there was a motorcycle gang that met behind Jared and Kirsten's home, and it just was, it just seemed ridiculous to me. It was a brand new neighborhood.
Are you familiar with where Jared lives?
I know where they live.
And
or
based on the
neighborhood.
fact that you're familiar with that area, did you take the fact that, how was your reaction to him knowing a motorcycle gang?
It was something that he had said to Shanna, and I was just like, are you kidding me? He's so, you know what I mean? He's just, everything he says is so, it was just another ridiculous statement.
And did you express that to the prosecutors and law enforcement?
I did. I think I even discussed how it was a brand new neighborhood, and I struggled to believe that a motorcycle gang was meeting there.
Now,
Do you guys, can you believe this? For 4 hours, this woman is talking about these text messages. Is this live by chance? We're live. We are live right now. Yes. Hi. Again, welcome everybody to the transparency. Yeah. Woo. God. Jeez. Unreal.
again, did you believe that while you're answering these questions on a murder case with the prosecutors and the police, that you were being recorded, that hopefully your answers were being accurately taken down?
In hindsight, I guess it was an assumption, but I don't think I gave that much thought. I was just there. Let me answer your questions and leave. Like, you know what I mean? I didn't give it a lot of thought.
Okay. Now, the next statement by Detective Johns was that Mario was so close to Jared that he could reach out and kill him or touch him or something along those lines. Do you recall that line of testimony?
I do recall the line of testimony.
Okay. Was that true or false?
That was another example of a shock value statement that he said. I don't think it was ever Mario. It was always, he has eyes everywhere kind of a thing. That,
Wow.
Shanna never needed to worry about the safety of the children when they weren't with them, that he had eyes everywhere. And he said, but it always toggled off of something that the children would have said first. And then maybe a statement was made, hours or days later from him. Maybe the kids said, oh, dad went to a meeting, so, somewhere or something. And they would say, and then it was like, well, oh yeah, there was someone so close to him, they could have touched him.
When he said he has eyes everywhere, was that in the context of he could keep Shanna safe from anyone, not necessarily Jared, or I'm a little confused on that.
He just led Shanna to believe that he had eyes everywhere. Like, you don't have to worry about anything. I've got eyes everywhere, kind of a thing. Like, was the general feeling he wanted her to feel safe.
Is that what you meant when you responded to the prosecutors and Detective Johns, and not the fact that he was following him or was going to the point where he could kill him?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I want to ask you about another line of questioning, or another line of his testimony.
Hi, Heather.
Did you hear the testimony about Detective Johns saying that you said Mario described these as missed opportunities, being, I guess, following him and them being missed opportunities? Did you hear him make those statements in the Arthur hearing?
I did. I heard the whole hearing, so I did hear the statements.
And did you ever say that to Detective Johns or to the prosecutors?
I don't recall the context of that statement. Like, I don't remember that particular statement as
being even.
Did you ever
topic.
make that statement? Is my question.
I don't recall that particular question of, when that statement, I was trying to think of where that one came from, and I don't remember.
Okay. Do you believe you even said or made that statement about missed opportunities?
I don't remember
Does that
that.
sound like something you would say?
Depending on the question, I guess it's possible, but I don't think so, but I don't remember.
Let me ask it a little more clear if I can. In the context of Mario having the ability to kill Jared and describing them as missed opportunities, did you ever describe anything remotely like that to the prosecutors?
I don't believe so. No.
Okay. And of course, I'll strike that. The next area that I want to cover with you is about this. About the testimony? Detective Johns testified about there being some delay of killing Jared because of COVID. Tell Judge Kite why
that's when you would want to kill.
I never said anything about a delay.
Oh my God. You guys, first of all, that's when you would want to kill, is during COVID. Motherfuckers were just dying because of COVID. You could have had COVID be the thing that killed somebody. That is wild to me. Also, like, it was just, wow. COVID doesn't delay kills. All right, guys, just letting y'all know. Our guns worked during COVID, honeys.
In killing Jared because I never had any knowledge of Jared being killed or a plan to kill him. Again, the children had come home from a week at the other household and had told Shanna that Jared was working from home, that he got a different job and he was working from home. Not long after that, Mario had made a statement that he never goes anywhere. Well, neither did anyone else in COVID. Like, it just didn't seem like, you know what I mean? Like, it.
But was that statement in reference to going to try and kill him, or?
No, it was just in general as the whole, you know, I know where he is at all times kind of a thing. I know where everybody's, I've got eyes. Not necessarily mine, just eyes.
Everybody, I know where he's at all times because nobody's going anywhere because it's COVID. Oh, God. Holy shit. Holy shit. Holy shit. Holy shit. I mean, woo, boy, this is wild. This is wild.
Okay. And I guess what I'm getting at, and I want to be clear because we don't know exactly what you said in that room. So I want to be clear about this question. Did any of that have anything to do with Mario having any animosity or intent to harm Jared in any way, shape, or form?
Mario didn't like Jared at all. Mario said oftentimes that, you know.
But I want you to answer my question if you can. The statements surrounding the fact that he didn't go anywhere.
Right.
Was that in reference to him attempting to go kill him or anything like that, or cause him harm in any way, shape, or form? Or was that just Mario talking about Jared in a general way?
I would say it was just Mario speak, his grandiose shock value statements that he always says, depending on why he was making them. You know, was it a bad week on text? Was it a, you know, it would just depend on the day.
All right. The next question I want to ask you is in reference to the testimony that Detective John said, you said during this meeting that Shanna knew of Henry Tenen before he was arrested.
Ooh, here we go.
Was that true?
That can you say the question again?
Yes. Detective Johns testified that there were conversations between you and Shanna about Henry Tenen before Henry Tenen was arrested.
No.
Was that a true statement?
The problem is, in retrospect.
And when I say arrested, I'm referring to being arrested for murder.
Murder.
Right.
Prior to that.
Right. So this is where the disconnect is. And I think part of it might have been my fault with the prosecution. I never knew who Henry Tenen was by name or any, I didn't know who he was until that arrest. I had a conversation with Shanna in the fall after Jared had been killed. She was just telling me that Mario, it was a conversation about Mario, and she said that a guy that lived in the downtown house had been arrested. I never knew his name. I didn't put all the pieces together of who he was until after that was announced and the news started advertising that it was a tenant, which I think that his last name and tenant were caused some muddied waters.
So you never knew who Henry Tenen was until it was announced he was being charged with the murder case?
Not at all.
Okay.
Which makes so much sense. His last name it's Henry Tenen. People were calling him Tenant, T-E-N-A-N-T, but his last name is Tenen, T-E-N-N-O-N, Tenen. Totally believable right there. Like, first of all, she didn't say his last name. She says a tenant of Mario's was arrested. Not Tenen, you know, just fucking wild to me.
So any statements by Detective Johns that you knew would be false?
They would be false because a lot of times I was answering questions after the fact. So at that point, I knew who he was, but prior to that, I did not. And I'm not sure that I ever made that as clear as I should have, because listening to some of the statements that Detective Johns made, it was obvious that he thought I knew who he was before I actually knew who he was.
Okay. Now I want to ask you about Detective Johns testifying about a week before the murder and this Hawaii trip. Are you familiar with that testimony?
Yes.
Okay. Now, was this another situation where, was this a statement of take care of, excuse me, was this a statement with Mario Fernandez making a claim that he would take care of that or something like that? His famous catchphrase, so to speak.
It was.
Okay. Describe for Judge Kite exactly what that was about, that conversation, what you told them.
Shanna had called me and told me that they had decided to get divorced. And Mario said, do you want me to take care of him? Or do you want me to take care of him? You know, I don't know him, I'm not really sure. And she said, Jared, and he said, yes. And she said, absolutely not. She said, I choose you. And that was the whole conversation.
Okay. When you say I choose you, was she referring that she was going to try and stay with Mario, or what? What does that mean?
No, because I'm not, and that was something that I tried to explain was I'm not sure. They went to Hawaii at least once a year. Sometimes it was twice, but it was at least once. And typically it was an evaluation of, I mean, it was a trip, but they would always like evaluate their marriage. They had different parenting styles. There was obviously, you know, things were not perfect. And so they would evaluate whether or not they were going to stay married. And so I don't recall if it was that particular trip or the one, you know, another one. I just know, I know that it happened. That conversation happened on a Hawaii trip, which one I wasn't sure.
Okay. And why aren't you sure?
Because Shannon and I talked a lot.
Okay. Now, then when you also, without getting into what you said before the grand jury, actually, I'll strike that. I don't want to complicate that issue. Did you hear Detective Johns make this testify about Susan Lee changing her phone number?
It did.
Was that statement true and correct?
No.
Tell us why that's false.
Susan's had the same phone number for as long as I've ever known her, which is like 25 years.
Okay.
Even when she moved, she never changed it.
Oh my God.
Now, did you ever explain?
You guys, this is unbelievable. Unbelievable. This is crazy. Motherfucker just got up there and lied.
In the context of Mario's catchphrase
I mean, if you hear this as a juror, like
with Detective Johns about take care of it.
Yes.
Okay. And how many times would you say you told him about that?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like that kind of came up multiple times over the course of.
Now, we also saw numerous text messages going back as far as, I believe it was 2016, about a hitman. What did you tell them about those texts?
That it was an inside joke between Susan and I and didn't have anything to do with Shanna.
Even when she was saying, even when Shanna would say, I'm not joking?
wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that was 9 years ago too. I mean,
I'm sorry?
so that was like 9 years ago.
Okay. What's the context? We saw text messages about funeral potatoes or casseroles. Can you tell us what was the purpose of that? What's the story behind that? Well, first, let me ask you this. Did you tell, when those text messages came up during the meeting with the prosecutors and the police, did you tell them what that was about?
Yes.
Okay.
Fucking believable.
Tell us about that. What's the context of that? I don't understand that.
Well, the prosecutors were under the impression that that was a code word for planning a murder, which is patently false. Funeral potatoes is just like a little catchphrase in the church. It's like a staple food after a funeral. The people.
It's a staple food. It's a catchphrase in the church, the Mormon church. but it is a code word for planning a murder. I cannot. I can't. This can't be reality, man.
People get served a meal, and typically it was that. At that time, back in 2015 or 16 or whenever it was, Susan was in charge of the women's group. I was part of the team that would help provide food for families who had lost loved ones. And I think I got asked to make funeral potatoes like 4 times in such a short amount of time. And so that kind of was like it was just a common thing at the time, because it was like, oh, more funeral potatoes. And, you know, so it was just, it's stupid is what it was.
In reviewing those text messages, Shanna says some pretty ugly things about Jared.
Yes,
And fair to say you did too?
fair to say.
Why are you making these statements about Jared?
Because at that time, they were both single. During their marriage, Jared was very hands-off when it came to the twins. He didn't have a lot of interaction with them as far as taking care of their needs. And during the separation, prior to the divorce, and then for after the divorce, while he was just single, it was tossing the kids back and forth, 2 days, 3 days, whatever. Many times I would go with her to pick up the children. And the children would have gone to him on a Friday, and you're picking them up on Monday morning, and they were wearing the same clothes. They were 3. They'd had accidents. Their clothing had not been changed, even through the accidents. And
Let me stop you right there. I want to know really why you're sending these text messages that you would like to see him harmed too, or words to that effect.
because it was just more of a,
I'm objecting, this is well beyond the scope of the motion. We don't need to get into this. Purple beats are irrelevant.
Well, it's a reference to her statements. Her text messages were admitted where her statements are being made. I'm just trying to get her to clarify those statements that are within the text messages or explain them.
The purpose of this hearing is not for a witness to set that a bad mouth or deceased ad nauseam.
And that's why I'm trying to bring it back as to why she.
Okay,
What's
to
the-
that extent, I'll sustain the objection if you'll just rephrase it and get it back to, I guess, the context and not her personal opinions.
Give us the context of these text messages where both you and Shanna are talking badly about Jared.
it became obvious that the children their needs were not being met under his care.
Let me stop you there. Would you, I'm going to try and lead. Would you describe, is it fair to say that the two of you were just venting your frustrations with Jared, right, again, when you were sending these text messages back and forth?
Yes.
Okay. And were they ever serious in nature, or did you ever believe them to be true? Meaning, were they ever meant to harm Jared in any way? Were you serious about, I guess, poisoning him with lard and things like that? Were those statements and the negative back and forth between you and Shanna, were they ever did you ever take them to mean that you guys, or you, that there was any intent to harm Jared?
No.
Now, having said that, I want to ask you about another issue. Did Detective Johns ever confront you with issues that he had with the church?
He made it clear to me and to even others who were interviewed that he was not a fan of the church. He was not a fan. He didn't trust the church. He didn't trust the leadership, and questioned he had a whole series of questions about my feelings on when Shanna left the church and things like that.
When you say he was not a fan of the church, why do you think that?
What's the relevance of this?
Detective Johns testified significantly about the church.
He does.
And other witnesses related to the church. I think his position as it relates to that church bears some relevance as to his credibility or his potential bias as a witness.
So, I mean, this has been months ago, but I recall, give me a moment.
withdraw the question. It's not.
Okay.
Well-
All I remember him saying is something that he had to do research about the church. I don't remember anything really beyond that.
He was asking about baptism. What the
Okay.
fuck are you
If
talking
I
about?
can
Come
have
on,
just a moment,
right?
sure.
You know that. You know it. He talked a lot about the church.
Ms. Jensen, the testimony you've given here today, have you given it to the best of your recollection?
Yes.
Now, have you had any medical issues that potentially could affect your memory or how you remember things, I guess?
I have.
Okay. What exactly occurred to you or what medical issue is there? Can you please tell Judge Kite?
A few years back, after a routine operation, I suffered a stroke and was in the hospital for several days, and it affected parts of my memory to where sometimes I jumble things. Sometimes I have a harder time with timelines than anything, chronologically, remembering exactly, when something happened or didn't happen.
And have you discussed this issue with your medical providers?
Yes.
Okay. And is it your understanding that this is potentially because of the stroke?
It's absolutely because of the stroke.
Okay. Did you at the time of the grand jury, and again, I don't want to get into your testimony, but at the time of the grand jury, did you advise the prosecutors about your stroke?
I did.
Okay. And the effects that it had on you?
I did.
Okay. And did that seem to sway them in any way, shape, or form in trying to get you to recall things?
Wow.
Did
that change them? What I'm trying to ask you is that, did they accept that as a response, or did you feel they accepted that as a answer as to why you couldn't recall things?
No.
Okay. Why do you think that? I'll withdraw the question.
Okay.
That last question, of course. I have no further questions.
Okay, now this is gonna be like, let's see how.
You intend to cross?
I do. Brief.
Okay.
Good morning, Ms. Jensen.
Good morning.
Did anyone else in the lunch bunch, did any of those divorcees, were any of their husbands murdered?
Did they what?
Were any of the lunch bunch husbands that were getting divorced, were any of their husbands murdered?
No.
Okay. So this was a little bit unique. You would agree with that, right?
Sure.
Okay. I want to be clear, when Mr. Baez is going through all of the statements that I think you used, the catchphrases of Mario, those are coming from Ms. Gardner to you, correct?
Yes.
They're not coming from Mario to you, correct?
Somewhere.
Some were, but the ones about getting rid of Jared, the important ones, that's coming through Ms. Gardner, correct?
But again, you're putting words in my mouth. I never said getting rid of anyone.
Taking care of, the catchphrase.
Yeah, the catchphrase.
I'm just being clear because it's not at all clear on the record that it sounds like from the record that you're hearing all of these things directly from Mario, when in fact you're hearing them from Ms. Gardner. Not that you've never heard Mario boast about something.
Right.
The particular statements that Mr. Baez was referring to in his direct examination, those came through Ms. Gardner to you.
That'd be hearsay.
Predominantly.
I asked her about multiple areas. Can he be more specific?
Which ones came from her and which ones didn't? You want to go through each one of them. When he said he was going to take care of Jared, did you hear that from Mario's mouth, or did that come from Ms. Gardner?
From Shanna.
And did it come from Ms. Gardner when Mario told her about a biker gang that was hanging out behind the house?
Yeah, that was from Shanna.
Yeah, and did it come from Ms. Gardner when he was talking about Mr. Bridigan wasn't going anywhere because of COVID?
From Shanna.
And that he could reach out and touch him. That was through Shanna, correct?
Oh, that wasn't referring to him, but yes.
Yeah,
Shanna.
but you're getting it from Shanna.
Yeah, this whole thing is like a bad game. Detective Don said that Kim said that Shanna said that Mario said that it's like a bad game of telephone. Like,
You're making my point for me. You don't know any idea what Mario is referring to other than what Shanna is telling you, correct? Don't look over there.
No, I'm just looking in general.
Okay.
Um,
Don't look over
Sure.
there. Listen to him. Don't look
I'm,
over
you know,
there.
I'm not going to argue the point.
Okay, so the answer is yes.
Yes.
And your medical condition has not improved in the last couple of years. You're still in the same condition you were when you were interviewed by the detectives and appeared before the grand jury and spoke to the prosecutors, correct?
Yeah. I mean, I'm stable.
Right. So it's not like a year ago you were in terrible shape and now you're magically better. You're basically the same person you were over the last several years.
Yes.
Thank you.
You just said Mr. Mizrahi was putting words, or they were his words. And one of the questions he asked you was taking care of Jared. The statement was, do you want me to take care of it? Not, do you want me to take care of Jared, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I wanted to clear that up. Now, when Shanna told you about the motorcycle gang, did you guys laugh about it?
Yes.
Okay, were all of these statements that are described that we covered today, statements that the two of you were, for lack of a better phrase, ripping on Mario because he's saying all of these ridiculous things?
Yes.
And is that, were you able to convey that to the prosecutors and to law enforcement?
I thought I did. I told them that most of the things that he said were just ridiculous. That I feel like I was very clear in saying that I didn't believe much of anything that Mario said.
And now following up on the cross-examination, when you describe them that these are conversations coming from Shanna, they're in effect, are they basically in effect the two of you laughing about things Mario said?
Yes.
No further
Because
questions.
nobody believes him.
Ms. Witness be excused. Thank you, Ms. Jensen. Mr. Bias or Mr. Crody?
All I have to say is I give this woman so much credit to go up against the DA like that, the district attorney's office, and accuse them of what she just accused them of. Nobody would want to be put in that situation. And here she said that she would do it because clearly it's the truth. Because why the hell would you ever do that? You would never testify to the things that she testified to and make that shit up. Otherwise, you need to move. Okay? So Kim Jensen, in my opinion, is credible. She did not ask to be put in the situation. It was Detective Johns' testimony that even got it to this point. And I think we got a very, very good glimpse of District 88 Maserati or whatever the fuck his name is. They put her, they were trying to get her as a co-conspirator unless you cooperate. You're going down too. And she's like, what? Can you imagine that? Text messages from 7 years prior to ever even knowing any of this. You think you're going to get me on being a co-conspirator? To commit murder?
I can hear the name. Linda.
And so that's the people that are on the screens here. You can't hear them because of Zoom. So I'm going to go right here to what Jose Bias wants to say here.
John's entire testimony that we.
Okay. So right there. Okay.
Through to the next slide and not even address it.
I'm still going through it, Your Honor, but that's fine. We can begin.
Okay.
The call logs.
For the record, Your Honor, discussions with the state.
The call logs.
Defense Exhibit 3. It is a transcript of Detective Johns' entire testimony. There'll be references to that by Mr. Bias during his argument. And at the state's request, they wanted that edited.
Okay.
Woo!
All right. Thank you.
Another one nimble. Shake it.
And please, the court.
Yes. Thank you.
There are several issues, so I'm going to try my best to do it chronologically for the court, and hopefully it would certainly sound a lot more fluid if I do it that way. But I'd like to take and direct the court's attention to how we got to the Arthur hearing to begin with. Obviously, we had the issue for the prior motion to recuse the state's attorney's office that preceded the Arthur hearing. we had filed our motion for bond, and I understand the court and the state preferred that the court dispose of the disqualification issue first before we ended up addressing the Arthur hearing. It was something we pushed because obviously Ms. Gardner's freedom is at stake. In addition to the fact that her main concern is she currently has a child with a terminal condition, and even to this day, every single day away from that child is absolute torture for Ms. Gardner. Having said that, we got to the Arthur hearing, and one of the first issues we had prior to it even commencing were these text messages of Susan Lee. So we were straight focused from the very beginning on Ms. Lee. The state argued that these messages were relevant because of Ms. Gardner's attempts to incite and induce others to kill Jared Brightigan. That was raised multiple times during their argument. But I think what's important is that we go through the timeline of the testimony and see how, in fact, that argument doesn't seem quite right.
Okay.
First off, Detective Johns testified about finding these text messages between Kim Jensen and Susan Lee. And upon finding these text messages, which knowing the context, we all know the context of this case and how those messages would seem to be incredibly damning information because they are the only ones where there's an actual solicit to another individual to hopefully find a hitman. Upon finding these texts, we now know that Detective Johns reached out and called Miss Lee on June 27th. Subsequent to that, we have the July meeting with Kim Jensen. So
Yeah.
Miss Lee testified that she had a conversation with Detective Johns, and it was brief, and she had agreed to have a Zoom call with them at a later date. We now know that that conversation or that Zoom call never occurred. In addition to that, that communication with this witness was never documented anywhere, and we only found out about all of this at the Arthur hearing. We now find out, in addition to that, that in July, when Kim Jensen went in, she explained the context of these text messages and the joke about Miss Lee's husband being African-American and how it was something they teased her with. And it was an on-running joke. And as you heard Ms. Jensen today testify, that this is something that was a joke long before she even met Shanna. So that explains why the state, finding this incredible piece of evidence, never followed up and never had a Zoom call with Miss Lee, because they absolutely knew that these text messages were made of a joke. And in addition to that, that also explains perhaps why they didn't file any police reports in reference to the contact. It also explains the fact as to why Miss Susan Lee was never placed on the witness list for the state of Florida. It's quite shocking when you look at the context of this case that those things would occur with such a big piece of evidence. But as the facts unfold, and what was known to the state at the time, as early as July, was that these text messages,
Yes.
were not going to be relevant to their case. But yet they came in here, they argued for them, and they argued specifically that this was an example of Miss Gardner attempting to solicit someone to kill her husband.
Wow.
Or her ex-husband.
Fucking wow.
Then we get to Detective Johns' testimony. And if you could go to the next slide. I actually start with...
Mr. Bias, hold on just
Sure.
a minute.
And Judge, I'm not going to be reading or referencing the entire...
I can't see this on my screen for some reason.
Oh, they got the transcripts. Oh, shit. I want to take a look at that really quick. Hold on. And we see that down here in the bottom, you can draw on the screen too if there is anything you want to circle that Miss Jensen says, I know Sue's husband knows people. Miss Gardner replies and then replies, I am not even joking. I want him gone. And the conversation goes on from there. Oh my God, that's not even how it went. What a
You want me to
lying
unplug it?
fat sack. Oh my
Sorry.
God.
No problem. I'd like to direct the court's attention.
Oh my God. At the same time they are having this conversation, here is a zoomed in version of it. Simultaneous with this conversation, did you also find text messages between Miss Jensen and the person that they were discussing finding them a hitman in the previous slide? Correct. So while this conversation was going on, Kim Jensen reaches out to the person that they are referring to and asks if she knows someone. Wait, what?
To the last question on line 23.
That can do magic, i.e., make someone disappear, referring to that they know. Do they? Wow.
And for the record, it's page 41 of the bond hearing transcript.
And one quick. You thought you were going to get this past Jose Baez? This wouldn't even get past me, motherfuckers. But I think that I'm a pretty good researcher. I've been able to put these dots together. Like, yo, give me dates, timestamps. I will fuck up your world, motherfucker. Like I said, I don't ever claim to be a lawyer because I'm not going to go in there and oral argue it. I probably could oral argue it, but I'll leave the line of questioning, to other people. I can argue the point. This is crazy.
Where the question is asked, and in your conversation with Ms. Jensen, she disclosed to you that she reached out to this person because of her conversations with Ms. Gardner. Answer correct.
Huh.
Now, in the context of this would lead the court to believe that she had a conversation with Ms. Gardner about killing Jared Brightigan, and then she reached out to Susan Lee
Yep.
in an attempt to do so.
Yep.
But it completely omits the critical fact of what Ms. Jensen actually said these text messages signify. And to not advise the court of that is reckless.
Reckless.
It's a clear attempt to mislead this court into thinking one incredibly damning fact that
Reckless. That's a good word.
that in fact is absolutely false and ended up being a joke and albeit an inappropriate joke. But this case is riddled with that type of off-color humor. But the timeline of how all these things occurred and the fact that they never placed her on as a witness and never advised us that she was a witness. Now, if we go through this discovery and we see these text messages, as a defense, we're going to be incredibly worried about the situation. And we would have, of course, the fact that they knew early on that these were a joke, we certainly would have liked to have had that information for the Arthur hearing so that we could have clarified for the court that this evidence isn't worth the paper it's written on.
Yes.
And to leave the court with that false impression that this was a legitimate solicitation for murder is befuddling, to say the least. So then we get to Detective Johns' actual testimony. When pressed on cross-examination, I asked him specifically, and if we could go to the next slide. And this is, I would direct the court's attention to the paragraph on the right, the top question, where I asked Detective Johns, now you never spoke to Susan Lee, did you? And his answer is, I believe one of my colleagues did. That's a lie.
That's a lie.
We know that obviously from Susan Lee's testimony and how accurate she was in terms of being able to go back and look at her phone records. And subsequent to that, we also know that's a lie because after being pressed multiple times, if we could go to the next slide, or I come back to the issue.
Shanna Gardner's getting
So
released.
you're the lead detective in this case, and you have text messages where they are allegedly looking for a hitman, and they call and they are texting someone. You got it right there in black and white, and you are texting a potential suitor for this hitman, and you never go and talk to the person who is the alleged person who they went to go looking for a hitman. His response now is, I believe at the time we were trying to locate her, her phone number had changed, and we didn't have a good address for her, so we were not able to contact her at the time during the message. That doesn't make sense. But now, it wasn't one of his colleagues that spoke to her. She changed her number, and we also found that out to be false.
Wow.
So when you pull that all together,
You can't lie
of
like
what
this.
Detective Johns did in his reckless disregard for the truth to try and convince this court that this was a legit.
You guys, this is why I am covering this case. This is why I'm covering this case. Okay? I did my research. And I knew something was off because I read every single page of their divorce. And I said, wow, why is Gardner getting their bad rap here. Gardner wasn't the one that was being wonky at all during their divorce with the children. I was blown away why she's getting this bad rap about this divorce. I was like, are y'all blind? Did you guys read the 900 pages? I mean, Jared up and left the kids and went and moved to Utah.
Legitimate search for an actual hitman. Aside from the changing stories during cross-examination, he still stands with the benefit that neither the court or the defense know that Miss Jensen had told them back in July.
Jared said, I'll let you pick whatever school you want the kids to go to if you release me from child support. If you care about your kids' schooling that much, but yet you're willing to just release whatever the other person wants and then you don't have to pay them child support, that's the wrong reasons.
Of last year, that this was in fact a joke. And they knew it was so much of a joke that they didn't even bother calling her or following up with her, but they still found it important enough to bring before the court as evidence to restrict this woman from her freedom and to keep her away from her children during pretrial detention. I don't think any lie would be acceptable for any witness before the court, but for a detective, the lead detective, to do that in this case on this issue, which is such a serious matter, which I presume was an important issue for the court when conducting its evaluation. My cross-examination was only as successful because I didn't have this information to perhaps paint Detective Johns as either sloppy, negligent, or not fully prepared, because that's the best I could do with the information that I had. I pressed him, he changed his story, but at the end of the day, this is still a search for a hitman with Susan Lee's husband. It is not. I could not convince anyone otherwise because of the facts that these text messages look pretty damning. But yet, of course, as you know, both witnesses, both people who were actually behind the text messages were able to clear that matter up for the court and the defense at that point. But it wasn't until seeing this issue where Susan Lee is actually watching this and realizing what a gross miscarriage of justice that this was, that she literally went out and hired a defense attorney and then had that defense attorney reach out to the defense and clear up the matter for the court. We don't usually have that benefit. And this is textbook lying and hiding the ball by Detective Johns. And the fact that the prosecutors were present during these questions is another matter altogether. Now, then that takes us to Linda Lucetti.
Linda, okay, I want to hear about Linda.
Oh, if we can go up 2 slides, 3 to the actual transcript space.
There we go. Linda.
Ms. Stifler
Okay.
is questioning the witness at Mr. Detective Johns at this point and says, did you make attempts to speak with Christopher Thomas and Linda Lucetti and other members of the Intrepid Crisis Management firm?
Okay.
Answer, myself and one of my colleagues flew in an attempt to speak with them and they avoided us.
Wow, okay.
That, as Ms. Lucetti testified to today, would cause serious doubt on that statement.
Oh my God! He lied about that.
Question, can you be more specific about your attempts to and their avoidance? Answer, well, Ms. Lucetti was running frantically around the front of her house as to hide from me, so I couldn't see, and she was in her house. Mr. Thomas was not in the office. I went to his residence and he had his wife answer the door a couple of times to avoid speaking with me. Well, while we don't have Mr. Thomas's testimony, we certainly have Ms. Lucetti's testimony that this description of events was absolutely false. And she felt it was important enough to bring forward and come forward and actually advise the court that this detective was again attempting to mislead the court.
Oh my God. So guys, that means we have Kim Jensen, who came in person because that's where she lives. Okay. She testified. We have Susan Lee, who testified via Zoom. These people, Susan Lee obtained a lawyer to contact Jose Baez and say, wait a second, that motherfucker was lying. She didn't change her number. She's always had. And now we have Linda Lucetti saying, what is this man talking about? Remember I told you guys about that tire bullshit? Okay. I believe that they found that truck. Before that tire. I don't know. I just have a feeling. When you're doing all this type of shit.
The fact of trying to avoid a witness is one thing. And then you have the fact that they actually they gave, the next slide, while in Utah, Detective Johns gives a Florida subpoena to a citizen in Utah, for which, as we know, this is not how it's done. And in addition to that, he has no authority to give a subpoena to a witness to appear in Utah. He has no such power. And then changes the date on it, as you can see.
What?
To a specific date and time for the next day, and then doesn't show. Never keeps his appointment with Miss Lucetti.
What?
So Detective Johns' characterization of that part of the testimony is completely false, and there's a reason why. And it takes us back to the issue of the truck.
The truck!
Detective Johns' attempt to discredit Miss Lucetti and her associate is kind of bootstrapping and covering up the main issue of what they attempted to do during the hearing, which was they specifically presented that on the night of Henry Tennant's arrest, that the next day there were a flurry of phone calls to this PR firm and to her attorneys.
No, that's true.
And as you know, and if we can go a couple of slides after the transcripts, here is the statement. And to be specific, this is Ms. Stifler's question on line 13. And to be specific, Ms. Jensen told you she had conversations with Shanna Gardner about Henry Tennant, and those conversations before or after Henry Tennant was charged with the murder of Jared Brightigan. Answer, those were before. Question, so before Henry Tennant was publicly named as an individual involved in the murder of Jared Brightigan, Shanna Gardner and Kim Jensen had discussions about him. That's correct. And they had these discussions about owning the truck. That was one of the areas where they tried to mislead you into thinking that Shanna Gardner knows that Henry Tennant's truck was used in the murder before anybody else.
I knew it.
So she must be the mastermind behind all of this.
Woo!
Because she knows about Henry Tennant and his truck being used in the murder.
Yeah!
Before the police ever make it public during their investigation.
Go tag this
But this is
motherfucker,
not
Jose.
the only time they attempted to get that fact before the court.
Woo!
If we go to the next slide.
I love it. Justice, baby.
As soon as, and this is an answer to a question, I apologize for not having the actual question, but it again states the issue about, no, I'm sorry. I'd actually direct the court to line 21. What did she say Ms. Gardner relayed to her? And this is to the PR firm, that their tenant had been arrested and that the tenant owned the truck that the police were looking for. Again, this is this fact. And it was brought up multiple times by Ms. Stifler to try and convince you that there's no way Shanna Gardner would have known or should have known that Henry Tennant's truck was used in the murder. But we know, but later on during cross-examination, I was able to clarify that. But again, here's another transcript on the next slide, please, where she basically states, and I'll start on line 14, can you describe for the court what your investigation uncovered as to Mr. Thomas's knowledge regarding the charges? And then answer, just that they weren't sure what the charges were, but it seemed unrelated to the truck or anything to do with Jared. Question, and again, I like the way she keeps using the word and again, and this is Ms. Stifler telling you again and again and again that at the time these messages are being sent, nobody other than the people who hired Henry Tennant would know of his existence as to a link to the murder of Jared Brightigan. Correct. Other than the Jacksonville police. Correct. I don't know how that's done. And it's multiple attempts to try and convince this court of a false fact. And normally I wouldn't say anything. I would put this one on Detective Johns, But this is a question, a leading question that states all of these
Leading.
facts as if they're true and they know them to be true. Well, in fact, they are false and they know them to be false. The next issue, if we go to the next slide, this is one of their slides. And this is a slide that they use to convince the court that this is the timeline of events of the flurry of calls about unrelated tenants, unrelated charges. Again, to try and show the court that she's scrambling because she knows, and she's not supposed to know,
She
that
didn't
Henry's
know
tenant's
she
truck
did.
was used in the murder and it's going to come back to her.
Yeah. She didn't know that there was this truck.
And these times, I would submit to the court, are times that are taken from the timeline of this case and have been used, if we go to the next slide.
Oh, he said
in
bring the phone
their
records
probable
in.
cause affidavit in the
Fuck
support
yes.
for application authorizing the interception of a recording device. Basically, one of their phone taps, they use this timeline specifically and these dates and times to lay out what occurred on that day. But as you can see, and what I brought out during cross-examination of Detective Johns, that Mr. Ordway, Henry Tennant's roommate, was told by the detectives specifically that Henry Tennant's truck was used in the murder. And I made a big deal out of it because, frankly, I think it's incredibly odd, and I have never seen in my career a detective giving sensitive information that hadn't been made public on a murder case to essentially a witness that could be, and by Detective John's own admission, could be involved himself. And he later, after not recalling, first he lied and said he didn't know anything about the conversation with Mr. Ordway, telling him he doesn't know what Mr. Ordway was told. And then upon being confronted, and I showed him the actual police report by his partner, Mr. Lamont, he then changed his story again, that he was told that in an attempt to get him to cooperate with them, to be a cooperator. And all the while, Your Honor, misleading you into the fact that there's no way Shanna Gardner or Mario Fernandez would have known that Henry Tennant's truck was used in the murder.
Fuck yeah,
It was
Jose.
a flat out attempt multiple times, as you can see through these transcripts, an attempt to mislead you, to take you down a path to think that this woman is absolutely guilty with proof evident, presumption great,
And you bought it.
when they knew that fact to be false. There
And you
was
bought
a
it.
conversation. And clearly here, you see conversations between Mr. Ordway and Mario Fernandez. And then subsequent to that, those conversations, that's when these flurry of calls occur.
Absolute fucking bullshit. This is bullshit.
Now,
Follow the money.
you take Miss Jensen's testimony
I
now.
told you he's the
And
best.
you look and then we have the testimony of
demonstrative
Detective
exhibits.
Johns with this incredible meeting that occurred in July, where finally they had, and I don't know if the court understood this through the timeline of things, but she testified at the grand jury, but they didn't have her phone at the time. So after the grand jury, they then had her phone and they extracted her text messages. And that's why they called her in July and had this meeting, and they put her in this room, this intimidation room, for lack of a better phrase, to sit there and sweat it out. And then we have two very experienced prosecutors making themselves witnesses in this case because they chose not to record it. They chose not to write a report about it. Well, they can't write reports, but they chose not to have a police officer present. Three members of the state attorney's office alone, for, as you heard Ms. Jensen describe, confronting her with text messages, asking her statements about critical facts in this case. And she is giving them information that a lot of these things were jokes. That's the way we talk. That's a catchphrase, giving all of this exculpatory information that could help Ms. Gardner's cause to get a bond at this Arthur hearing. That could help me cross-examine this witness a lot more. And we were denied that as well at that very critical stage of these proceedings.
Pants
You
around
have
your
one
ankle moment.
situation, okay. And we dealt with that situation where
Let's shake the bell. That's a pants around your ankle moment. Woo! You guys, people can say, how come everybody hates attorneys that cost a lot of money? Okay. It's because they're not just paying for themselves. Usually they're paying for like their whole damn team. Okay. because usually a really expensive attorney says, well, I have a lawyer that does this. I have a lawyer that does this. And when I have to give this duty out, that's who does that portion of your work. And this is what they do. And this is what we bill for at that. You're getting a law firm, basically a team. You're not getting just a lawyer. But does it negate the fact that they still did it? Does it eliminate the facts? Like, even if you take away Jose Baez representing this woman, okay? We just know about it because this woman could afford to show this fuckerage. It does not negate the facts, and the facts are the facts. It does not negate the misconduct, the reckless actions of this lead detective, the prosecution's office, and then it then spirals down and says, if you're going to do all of this, you want me to believe a single fucking police report that Detective Johns wrote up? Fuck out of here. Your credibility is shot. And I will be so disappointed if London Kite comes back any other way. Shanna Gardner should not be without, she should have a bond.
I think that when we had the disqualification issue of the state's attorney's office, albeit a completely different matter. And then we have Detective Johns, not just lying once, but time and time again on major critical facts and withholding information, misleading information, and flat out false information. This has no place in a court of law. This detective knows better, and these questions are completely inappropriate. And it was riddled throughout the entire Arthur hearing. One misleading fact after another, after another, after another. And as you heard Ms. Jensen describe, all of these explanations occurred without anyone documenting anything now. Now, I am stuck with a situation where do we now have to list Mr. Mizrahi and Ms. Stifler as witnesses? Because Ms. Jensen clearly has a different take of what she told them than they do. And perhaps the summary might be enough for us, perhaps not.
This is why Jose Baez asked that they recuse themselves. Even earlier than this, he wanted the DA's office to recuse themselves.
But the fact of the matter remains is we've got a big, big problem here.
Huge problem.
If they intend on using these text messages,
yep, they're out. They're
I
out.
want to know what this critical witness said specifically to law enforcement, but I have absolutely no way of doing that unless I call one of these prosecutors to the stand, for which we never want to do. Then comes, I would say I saved the biggest flat out lie for last. And I go back to the court's order where the court simply followed the money. It's where they started with their case, and they showed you slides.
Oh God, here we go.
Bring up. The court may recall this $5,000 transaction.
Oh hell yeah,
on
here
March
we go.
15th
The money.
from Shanna Gardner Irrevocable Trust.
This is one of their exhibits.
This
You guys, we will be following this case. I will be going to Jacksonville. This is one of my top 3 cases to cover because it is not what people seem to think it is. And I'm trying to introduce it bit by bit by bit to get people hooked on fuck innocence, fuck guilt. I want people hooked on the process of how we're getting to innocence and guilt. But this isn't the process that they're trying. You can't do this. Would you be okay if it happened to you? No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. And you shouldn't take money to get a lawyer and his firm to have to dissect all of this crap because they chose to lie. I think that the state should be paying the fees of all of this shit that has taken it to get and gain her freedom during then this process. Period. I gotta pay all this money. Oh, but once you prove that we did all that, then you can try to come after us and sue us later civilly. No, fuck that. I don't even want to sue you civilly. You're paying my lawyer bills. You're paying my lawyer bill now, and you're paying them now. Shanna Gardner deserves to be out on bail. Period.
Incredibly damning piece of evidence was presented, highlighted here in a red box. And then the next slide.
Woo,
Go to the
DC
next
baby.
slide. We then show the transfer on April 26th from Shanna Gardner Irrevocable Trust. So you got one in March, one in April.
Okay.
And then they showed you other bank statements. If we can go to the actual Henry Tenon's standard checking statement. The prosecutor showed the court checks here in March where Mr. Tenon made these deposits from, of course, Mr. Fernandez's account, which ultimately, as the court said, follow the money, and as the prosecutors told you to follow the money, Your Honor. And then we had the actual checks. These are, again, I'm using the state's PowerPoint slides to show you the actual transactions where they tied it all together nice and neat in a bow for you.
What they
If we can
failed
go
to
to the next
do.
slide.
What they failed to do was do
And
what?
I'm showing these for just as demonstrative so that the court can recall this portion of the state's presentation. So we have all of these statements, sign, seal, deliver. As ridiculous as the assertion was that this man committed a murder with no money up front and $5,000 later on of the $150 that he was promised. Okay, it still looks very bad for us. It still looks outrageous, or as the court used, incredible.
That's what I've been telling you guys.
And this is the court's order where the court utilized the information that the state gave her to make its actual just decision. Not only did the defendant conspire to find a hitman, that's questionable because, of course, we now know the text messages were that of a joke. And I don't recall, I don't know if the court recalls to Detective Johns falsely testifying about a tattoo artist that when Shanna Gardner had asked him about knowing someone, that he stated he didn't think it had anything to do with murder, but yet Detective Johns, in his inability to be honest, said that it was for, in fact, the to actually find someone for murder.
The defense argument is incredible.
But she also funded the cost.
Evidence. Wow.
$5,000 sent to Tenon as the first payment for killing her ex-husband came from her trust account. Following the money, Fernandez transferred the money from the trust account to the LLC that they co-owned. Ultimately, Fernandez wrote a check from the LLC to pay Tenon for the murder.
Mm-hmm.
Defendant argues Fernandez had complete control of their finances and she was unaware of his dealings with Tenon. The defense argument is incredible considering the evidence.
Wow. Those are her words, and now he's going to blow it up.
I want to go back to the very first slide so we can follow the money once again. Can we go back to the first slide?
This is his word. No, this is his version. Okay.
These prosecutors took these bank statements, and as we all know, they're monthly bank statements. They put them on a PowerPoint, but I would direct the court's attention to look at the statement period for this date, for this specific transaction, which, as you can see, is March 1st of 2021. The murder did not occur until a year later. To put this before the court, to insinuate, and if you look at the very next slide, then we go to April 26th.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
April 1st, 2021 to April 30th, 2021. That is the statement period for these messages. And then if we go to the next slides down, when we get to Henry Tenon's checking account, we're talking about a checking account on March of 2022. not 2021.
Are you fucking kidding me? A year? They try to make it seem like these were 2022 transactions? Woo! Oh my God. They try to say, yeah, the reason that he paid you this is so, hey, we have to space out the payments. We have to space out the payments. Oh my God. What the fuck? These are 2021. Do you guys see how they put the check over here above where like the standard checking statement, you would normally see like the date of the year in your bank statement, it could be off to the right. They put this check covering that. Oh my God. These checks are from 2021. You guys, I'm watching this live with you. And this is why I couldn't catch it on during the Arthur hearing, because look it was so small and they covered up where you need to see the dates. Oh my God, who the fuck do they think that they are? I can't pick my chin up. I can't even talk.
They want you to follow the money, Your Honor. But they want you to follow their path to the money, which clearly is false and absolutely misleading and has no place before this court. They
covered up the year when they did, like, when they showed very briefly, holy shit.
This and each and every one of Detective John's lies and these issues, one after another, after another, after another. It's shocking that we have so much to criticize and so much to point out. But if you even just take this issue here, everybody knows you get your monthly statements. They had to look at March of 2022 and April of 2022 because that's when the murder occurred. And that's when Henry Tennant's telling him he got this money. And it's true, he did get money, but it didn't come from the Shanna Gardner Trust. So what I find even more shocking is you got to go back. Okay, well, we don't have any money coming from Shanna Gardner. That's how they tie Shanna Gardner to all of this, through the money. And if you look at back to the April 1 of 2021, just to be clear that it didn't come from the Shanna Gardner Trust. If you look right below their red box that they want you to focus on only, check 1052.
Look at,
He empties out the entire account.
Yeah, all of it.
It's at 18,000. He writes a check for 16,000. There's no longer any money. There's just 1,900 basically left. So you know now that they're lying to you, misleading you, putting forward false. I guess it's a real document, so I can't call it a false document.
And they're fabricating evidence.
But this is shameful and nothing less. And again, it's the only thing, it's what specifically ties Shanna Gardner to these checks and to this money.
Fucking
and
shit,
just
I
like the
can't believe
truck,
this.
where they try to mislead you on that, and just like with the Susan Lee text messages, where they try to mislead you on that, and well, they don't only mislead you, they misled us. We had no ability to defend her on a lot of these issues. And the court knows. Look, I think I could have caught it during the hearing, but I'm focused on my cross. I'm focused on what's going on. There's a million things. As a trial lawyer, the court knows. There's millions of things, and to go through a detailed bank statement and to be able to pull that out is quite difficult. And then there's this fact. Your Honor, I looked for the actual April and March.
This is why people need me. This is why that's why people say, Leanna, go be a lawyer. No, because I would have caught that. In a
Bank
second,
records
if I would have had that bank statement.
for this account in the discovery, upon discovering this, and we do not have them.
Boom.
I have asked
I
our
cannot
co-defendants,
fucking believe this.
Ms. Day, our co-defendants counsel, if they have them, and I'm sure as officers of the court, they can stand up and say they don't have them either.
For 2022?
Correct.
Oh my
So-
God.
Now you have to ask yourself, why are those not? Why are the months of the murder or the months following, the 2 months following the murder, for which they based this whole indictment on, and it's part of, it's
Oh
all
my
over the discovery of
God!
how these checks were written and how the money came from Mario Fernandez
Whoa!
and Shanna Gardner and all of these facts.
Told you guys.
But yet
Woo!
the bank statements disappeared, or we don't have them. That's all I can say. And we come before you to try and get Miss Gardner, have at least her ability to be with her children. And
Yes.
this gets presented before the court,
Yes. And
this
they should be
gets-
admonished.
sent to the point where it was detailed in quite significant fashion in your order for which you considered to deny Miss Gardner's motion. I think, I'm a little stuck where there's just so much
Yeah, you don't need that's
here
not how I feel.
of
It's like,
false and misleading information presented that we had no choice to bring it to your attention. Because I think if you had known the truth, the results may have been different.
yes.
Your consideration would certainly have been different.
100%.
And that this court deserves the truth. We all do. And this process is supposed to be a search for the truth. But it is anything
Exactly.
but.
I'm so sick of this.
And one incident, I get it. And I know, and I read the court's order on the motion for disqualification. I know the court was not a fan of what occurred, but we're all human. We all make mistakes. I get it. But this is not a mistake.
Mm-mm.
This is not negligence. This is not
No.
bad lawyering. This is a pattern, a clear and distinct.
This is fucking a crime. If you or me did this type of shit, we'd be arrested. It's first of all, they purged. The detective committed perjury. That is a crime. Arrest that motherfucker now.
distinct pattern of trying to skirt justice and the truth. And it is deeply embedded in the black letter law of this state that this is a death penalty case, and we all know that death is different.
How could he be asking for death in this case?
I think
out of here.
Given all of these
Gardner
things
didn't
put
pull the
together,
fucking trigger. Regardless if you think that she's involved, she didn't pull the trigger. This isn't a death penalty case for her. I'm sorry. That's ridiculous. We plotted and planned a murder. You know what? If other people made those acts, just because I told you to go do something and you went ahead and did it, that's like what they teach you when you're a little kid. If someone tells you to go jump off a bridge, you can go do it. Fuck
You
out of
have
here. They made their
reckless
decisions.
conduct by
Let 'em lay
significant
in it.
members of, by significant witnesses. And I have no idea how something like this would occur. And I can be frank with the court and tell you, upon finding out this information, one of the things that we considered would be knowing that maybe this won't make a difference, and maybe it's best to sit on this card and utilize this during the trial. But
Yep.
it's not, upon discussion and consideration, it's not our job to subvert the truth. It's our job
Yeah.
to work towards it.
No, you
And
know,
I don't think we could have
he's absolutely right. We could have sat on this. We could have sat on this and tried to fuck him up in trial, right? But Shanna Gardner has to sit there every single day. Like, wait, no. We're not, this isn't a game. But that is what lawyering has become. It's a game. That's what the courts have become. It's a game. Who can get away with what? If you could be sly enough to do this and do that and do that, hey, then you won your case and you didn't get caught doing it, you know? But I'm telling you what, people wouldn't do this shit if there was consequences. So now it's on you, Judge Kite, who I've been fucking praising, and I hope to God I'm not wrong.
Sat by and allowed you to think one thing and to be misled under these circumstances and not say anything. A lot of these issues we could have put off, but it's the false statements, the withholding of critical information from the defense, information that's favorable to Ms. Gardner. It's like a cancer that is riddled throughout the evidence in this case, where I don't know if the court can accurately or effectively trust any of it.
Yep.
And I hope the court knows I'm a little bit more articulate than this, but I'm using my words very carefully here.
Yeah.
And because I find no pleasure in this whatsoever. I want this process to be a just and fair process. We both want to put on our cases.
But this is not how you put it on.
But I've taken an oath, and I cannot stand by and allow this to happen without calling it out.
Yep.
And it's just a very difficult thing for me to do, but one that I think.
So obviously, this doesn't get brought before the court very often. In fact, it's been urged that I not even hear it. Pre-trial Richardson hearings are rare. They can occur. What are you asking me to do?
Well, I think the court has various remedies, and we outline them in our motion.
What is the authority for a dismissal, though? So let's say I take the position you want me to. I don't know of any authority that gives me that ability to sanction that way. When things are happening pre-trial, the law that I've read is it's exclusion most of the time. Also is cautioned by the court, and that's a remedy asked for in the motion.
Ooh.
So in light of what you've explained to me today, if I were to see it your way, what do you want me to do?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I love it. Well, number one, we want Shanna Gardner to be out free. This fucking hearing is one of the best I've ever seen.
I think
It's a Brady violation.
Pull the
Brady.
exact issue or pull the exact source on this, but I believe that either the rules of procedure or case law give the court the authority and the ability to fashion multiple types of remedies in a case up to and including dismissal. It's a rare remedy. It's rarely granted. I recognize that. We're really talking about some rare conduct here.
Rare conduct.
And I think for us, obviously, there's a hierarchy of remedies that we would seek, and we certainly do not want to take that off the table in terms of what the court should do. You know, I stand in the shoes of a criminal defense lawyer proudly, and my first reaction would be, yes, this case should be thrown out. It should be tossed because at this point, it has been so infected, even from before when the case started, when you've got lawyers coming in here, smart lawyers who had the forethought to think, hey, there's some devices with attorney-client privilege that you shouldn't be viewing, and they actually were granted. They went through this whole extreme thing, and I'm not going to, restate all of what occurred previously, but all of those things occurred to make sure fair play and justice occurs, and that occurred. Okay, we had the ruling on that, but the conduct continues. And you got a detective serving subpoenas in Utah where they have no authority to do that. It's essentially a crime. It's a misdemeanor to present something as an official subpoena when in fact it is not.
Oh my God.
So how do we have a trial with the lead detective continuing through this course of conduct and all of these things secret meetings occurring without being recording with arguably the most important witness of the case, describing the only piece of evidence in the case that implicates Ms. Gardner. Again, I understand I understood the court's conclusion after being misled with all of these different things, but she's nowhere near the scene of the murder. She is married to an individual, yes, but we didn't go through text messages of Shanna Gardner telling Mario how much she wants him killed or anything, even way back when they first met. Since if these text messages are not stale, there should be things in there that specifically are related to Mario Fernandez and Shanna Gardner, but there's no such thing. You didn't hear about any of that or any of these other individuals. So it's a mess. For lack of a better phrase, it's an absolute mess. Now, in that hierarchy, yes, we would ask for exclusion of these text messages. You've got to do something to stop this type of conduct.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm just gonna blanket. I'm not calling anybody's names out, but governmental conduct. The only way you can prevent that from happening again is through sanctions to prevent them. And the courts have determined exclusion to be one of those, to be an actual remedy for that cause. And the cause is our government should not be doing this to any citizen accused. Our government should not have detectives on the stand lying to a judge and going off in other states and serving subpoenas that aren't valid and committing misdemeanor crimes over there. And then,
First of all, I like to tell you guys again that you guys all thought I was crazy because I wanted to take up this case. And Lana, she's so guilty. Lana, she's so guilty. And I was like, have you read the motherfucking shit like I have? And I said, you're right. She looks so guilty, doesn't she? She looks so guilty. She looks so guilty. She looks so guilty. Just like Karen Reed looks so guilty. Just like Brian Kohlberger be looking so guilty. This is fucking wild. I'm covering this case because I smelled bullshit. I smelled it when I printed off every single police report. Went through it on my channel. Trust me, it's probably some of the boringest shit you've ever saw. But I was looking at this shit like, okay, how did they find how did we even get to this point? No, this type of conduct is how we got to this point. I got you. Girl, we still think you're crazy, but we love you. Jose Baez is trying to be very, very. You can't go outright. Nobody goes outright in a courtroom unless you are pro se like myself and starts accusing people of misconduct and lying and like a lunatic, kind of like myself. I have no problem doing it. Lawyers don't do that against other lawyers. These people should be disbarred. 100% disbarred. This case against Shanna Gardner should be dismissed. Okay. And no, I don't feel like Shanna Gardner's, she's walking. Nope. Nobody's walking. I hate that word. She's going to walk. She's going to walk. No, she was motherfucking framed. This is by the government. By the fucking government. If we can't trust our government, what is wrong with this world?
Just one piece of evidence after another that is just a flagrant attempt to mislead the court.
So if I take what's at the back of the motion that was filed on behalf of Ms. Gardner, it asks for the special jury instruction to draw an inference related to Detective Johns. And I'm familiar with that based on, generally that comes when there's a specific destruction of evidence. It's a negative inference instruction. So the defense is requesting that potentially, but that's later on down the line. if you were to ask for that. Exclusion of text messages, exclusion of any statements made by Ms. Gardner.
I think the court has to.
And I'm assuming D means reconsider the information at the bond hearing.
Yes, because this misconduct was done in the effort to keep her incarcerated. I think it's only fair that she be released because of it. Otherwise, when it has to be a remedy strong enough to prevent them and to discourage them from doing it again. That
Then
didn't
again,
occur.
you asked for disqualification.
Yeah.
Correct. When we did the disqualification, it's interesting because when that argument was going on, I had the ability
They
to
didn't ask
observe
for
most
enough.
of it,
Holy
if not
shit.
all. And I don't think they were worried.
You guys, I don't have the motion. I don't have this motion. I think the judge is wondering, wait, what do you want me to do? Because I'm reading through this. Because I think in her head, she's like, holy shit. You guys aren't asking for enough. I think the judge in a way is like, well, okay, let's say I see things your guys' way. What do you want? Because I think the judge is like, you probably are going to get it. Because this is insanity. I think that they didn't ask for enough in the motion. And maybe that's because Jose Baez wants to continue working and getting some pay, but woo.
One bit that they was going to be that they were going to be disqualified. Mr. Mizrahi came up there. He didn't have any notes, any case law, it was quite clear that they didn't feel that this was much of enough to warrant anything, and that nothing was going to happen. Though this is much more serious. I can't. I
think he doesn't know what to say. Who
I'm
doesn't?
having a hard time arguing because
Because I can't
how
believe
could
it.
they sit here and present this evidence to you and attempt to mislead you and take you down this path?
Yeah.
Where
I feel you.
it's
I feel
just,
you.
It's shocking to say the least.
You know what? You are. Think about this. You would be at a loss for words because you have to look over there and say, you basically cheated at a game of Monopoly and we caught you with all the $500 bills. Okay. We basically said, you said that you have all these properties that you don't. We're clearly playing the same game of Monopoly and we see that you don't have these properties now. You had little fake cutouts. You have no words to say. I get that. When you're at a loss of words like this is a very, you just can't fathom it. Also, sometimes, and maybe you don't want to say it's the judges. Well, I was hoping that when you would start seeing this stuff, that you would start speaking on your own, judge. But guess what? He can't say that to the judge. He can't say, I was expecting for you to step in once you saw this. You want to know what's nuts, guys? The comment section of this hearing and what the United States of America, their citizens and people that don't even live in this country are commenting in this section of this video that was done. I would have thought, reading the comment section, you could have never anticipated what we saw here today. You would have thought that Shanna Gardner was trying to attempt to do some bullshit wiggle room to get out of not being in prison. That's not I'm telling you, go read the comment section of the video of the live hearing. I want to barf. Write down every single name of every commenter and just remember those names, because those people are either family members of some other side, family members of this, but they couldn't have possibly watched this.
And it has to be a shocking response from the court to prevent them from doing it again. If Susan Lee would not have been watching, we would not have been able to bring this to your attention. If Kim Jensen was not watching, we wouldn't have found out until much later on, and who knows how her memory would have been affected as to what occurred on that specific situation. But they all, and even you got a woman in Utah who's watching too. And everybody's outraged by Detective Johnson's testimony and mischaracterization of the facts, his reckless
that,
disregard for the truth, to the point that they're coming forward.
Stay with the money. Stay with the money, man. They presented these statements like they were 2020 motherfucking 2 to that judge. That it was 1 month after the killing that Mario Fernandez had to pay him, and they had to spread out these payments. That happened a year before. Oh my God, that's disgusting.
These cameras, a citizen accused would be helpless to respond, and we would not have the ability to respond at least effectively. Well, it certainly wasn't effective enough because our motion got denied. So I think
the remedy is we're asking for a dismissal.
I think
that's number one. Number two, obviously,
I think it's quite obvious this is a serious matter, serious issues, serious conduct, and
I'd be asking to be able to write a brief to give you case law on what you can do. But obviously, we want this dismissed. Obviously, we want her out. Obviously, we want sanctions. That means we're asking that Detective Johns. I mean, it's almost like you want him to be able to testify. That way, you can destroy him on the stand in front of a jury. Okay, so you don't. You want. I want the prosecutors to be removed. And I want them out, new special prosecutor added, but I want the prosecutors on the witness list so we can talk about what they attempted to try to do to arrest her. Basically, we're going to keep on going down all of these things, and we're going to, put in this motion, and then we're going to have this Frank's hearing, and then this is all going to be tossed. So then what are they going to be left with? What are they going to be left with? Did you know that he just said that nobody has seen any 2022 bank statements? The murder was in 2022. They provided a year prior to 2021 bank statements and presented them to that judge like they were 2022. Here's 2021, but we're going to present them like they're 2022.
Again, death is different. We have those marching orders with death penalty cases that while we follow the same rules, the consequences are so much greater. So we have to be that much more in line. We have to follow the law that much more, that much closer.
The sanctions.
Extra attention needs to be paid, and extra.
No wonder why he went out there on a press conference and said, like, this is what I'm going to say. I'm appalled. I'm just secretly
diligence
happy.
Needs to be done.
I'm secretly happy.
Especially from ministers of
I
justice.
was right.
I
Suck a
think,
dick.
if I'm not mistaken, the U.S. Supreme Court read was
gets
quite
the bell.
clear about our roles in this system. My role is that of her advocate, to be her voice. Their role is to seek the truth, to be ministers of justice, and to not put forward this type of evidence, to not support this type of conduct, and to not be a part of it in any way, shape, or form. That's why they're granted this incredible, awesome power of discretion. They don't give that to just anyone. So if they have the discretion to not only charge someone with murder, but to actually ask for the ultimate penalty of death, there comes with some response. That comes with a lot of responsibility, and I think that responsibility has fallen. They have fallen very short in terms of their responsibility in that matter, and we think, as we laid out in our motion, we think that this obviously was a situation to prevent Ms. Gardner from being set free during pretrial. At the very minimum, she should be released. At the very minimum. But I think that this conduct goes far beyond that, and 100%. I hope the court considers that. That's your Honor's place in our system to make that decision. You call the balls and strikes, and you also make the tough calls. But I don't want to be a part of any of this.
Yeah.
And I hope, and I ask that the court not either. I know the court doesn't want to either, but
don't entertain
something has to be done about this.
Don't entertain this.
And again, I apologize for my lack of fluidity here in terms of my arguments, but I don't make them lightly, and I don't want to say specific names or things like that. And I really have tried my best to do it to the point of the bare minimum while still fulfilling my oath to this woman. Unless the court has any other questions, I rest on those arguments.
I want to be clear, while you're asking the court to do something. I can't do it of my own volition. It has to be a request by the defense. So I want to make sure that what's in your motion is what you're asking me to evaluate as far as potential. If I saw everything your way, that is a potential remedies that you would seek.
Well, he just
And
said it
I would then
orally.
decide what the appropriateness of that is based on the information that you've given me in this hearing.
Yes, I would answer in the affirmative that yes, we would seek dismissal. In the alternative, we would seek exclusion. In the alternative, well, we would seek exclusion and her release. And at the very bare minimum, her release, a reconsideration and her release. I have hesitated saying this before, and I know I know the court has seen that hesitation before, but I haven't been shy about it either. And I think that I don't want to be dealing with the Hail Mary of a jailhouse snitch, because this type of conduct occurs. She gets stuck in jail, and now we have to deal with someone making things up and just turning this even into a bigger circus than it already is. I don't want to go there, and I have had deep concerns. And look, I also I have enough experience to know what happens next, especially when stuff like this is happening.
Yeah, you have to say, yeah, she's not safe.
We really haven't even started this case.
No,
and
we
look
haven't.
at all of the mud that we're trying to get through. And it's an incredible mess. And I can't believe this evidence was presented to you. I can't believe that that Detective Johns testified as such.
And I can't believe they allowed him to.
Himself. And I really,
yeah, no, you need to say, he needs to say, and I know he doesn't want to go at the prosecutors. I know that, but he needs to say all of the questions that were being asked of Detective Johns were leading questions. Detective Johns was being led by Stifler. She knew what he was going to be testifying to. Put her ass on the fucking rope.
I really think that a strong response from the court is warranted in terms of the relief that the court, we hope, justly decides and executes in this matter.
Thank you.
My response will be brief. I may have to share my time with Ms. Stifler about some particular issues, since many of the things that we heard here today were brought up to our attention for the first time. My only direct response to Mr. Baez is that I have been doing this job that is very dear to me for over 25 years. And I find it very difficult to be lectured about how to be a prosecutor and how to take the solemn responsibility that the people of the state of Florida have entrusted to me. And then to be lectured by a person that stands on the steps of the courthouse and gives press conference in violation of our professional rules of conduct, and then comes into this court and brings up issues that he's never raised before in paper motions, which is the way things are done, which is the way we're taught in law school. If you file a motion, you ask for a remedy, and then Mr. Baez makes up remedies as he's staying here in court about dismissals, which were never asked for in the paper pleading. Neither was anything having to do with Ms. Lucetti mentioned in the paper pleading. Neither was anything mentioned about the defense's different interpretation of the bank records mentioned in any pleading. And that is the only other thing I would say about the banking records is obviously the state is obligated to disclose all evidence in the case. We have gone through great pains to discover the voluminous records in the case. We obviously discovered the records in the case during the course of the hearing. The fact that this is the first time that either Ms. Stifler or I have heard a word about not having these bank records, and then they put it up on a screen in court in front of camera and say, we never got this. A phone call and email would have sufficed, and we have provided those copies of the records, which we obviously believed were provided in the entire time, if they were not previously provided. With regard to the actual motion and what they're claiming, because obviously all they wanted to do here was to rail on the state and basically have another bond hearing. I want to put in what was previously introduced into evidence, which are the text messages that obviously Ms. Lee and Ms. Jensen have a subjective feeling about what they were about. But of course, what was buried in there is the actual text messages. So just for the record, and you can easily refer to it. Kim Jensen said, quote, Shanna needs a guy, end quote. Susan Lee says, quote, what kind of guy, end quote. Ms. Jensen says, quote, the kind that perform permanent disappearing acts on certain people. Know any magician? End quote. Susan Lee says, quote, I'm a magician. No, that I do not. For stupid, end quote. Ms. Jensen says, I was thinking of Thomas, LOL. Miss Lee says,
LOL.
he isn't a magician, but I'll ask if he knows any. Miss Lee says, I'm sure he knows a few. So their characterization and subjective belief, which by the way was 100% disclosed before this the bond hearing. And any claim is just false that it wasn't disclosed because they had the grand jury testimony. We have the emails that we have attached to our response that indicate that they knew about all of this. So they argued it to Your Honor. So but the objective evidence is what it is. The defendant comes into court and says, I shot somebody. He can come back later and say he's kidding, but the state doesn't have to disclose that, even though we did disclose it. It's also interesting about the whole concept of Susan Lee that somehow we're trying to hide the ball when we provided the name Susan Lee to the defense in these text messages. These are all people that are friends of the defendant. The fact that we haven't spoken to her is not evidence of hiding the ball. They found out about her because we disclosed her name. It's part of the evidence in our case. They say that the detective lied and it's some pattern of conduct. They're referring to his partner's reports to impeach him. I know Your Honor is so familiar. So we're talking about the text messages and the reports are things that were disclosed that they have and they're using it to impeach. Mr. Bias spent the last 30 minutes of the argument talking about a record that states what it states. The funds from Ms. Gardner's account funded Mr. Fernandez's account. There's no hiding of anything. We didn't white out the dates of the transactions or anything like
What?
that.
It was in 2021. You said they were in 2022.
The concept that the state of Florida is not allowed to meet with a witness, and I'm glad Mr. Bias actually clarified it because now the court can see the whole purpose behind that. Ms. Jensen, on multiple occasions, sat down with the police and says she knows nothing about this case. No one has no suspects, no idea, no concept of what's happening. Then she's subpoenaed before the grand jury and under oath discloses for the first time that Shanna Gardner told her that the defendant, Mario, her husband, was going to, whatever the catchphrase is, I don't want to say it wrong, the catchphrase about the victim in this case, and that she told him not to. That was, of course, the first time any of that was discovered. And then lo and behold, when we get the search warrant of Ms. Jensen's phone, we discover all these other text messages that show that the conduct went way beyond all of that. Hence, a subsequent bring down to the state attorney's office to discuss it with her and the possibility that she is withholding evidence, which she was, because in that subsequent meeting, as she indicated under oath here today, there were multiple other statements that Ms. Gardner indicated to her about Mr. Mario Fernandez boasting about his ability to take care of whoever it was. I believe it was. So, I mean,
How is he? Wait, you guys, though, he believes this. You guys, he believes this. He's been doing this for 25 years. Fuck yeah, you've been doing this for 25 years. And every fucking case that you fucking prosecuted should come the fuck back up. Jose Bias didn't say that you haven't been practicing for 25 years.
They listed Ms. Jensen as a witness. And according to the Florida Rules of Criminal Procedure, they listed her as a witness that they intended to call. That's the defendant's responsibility. They don't have to list anyone that has no. They listed Ms. Jensen as a witness since December 2nd of 2023. We just heard an hour of railing on us withholding evidence, and they had listed the witness since 2023, stating their intent to call that witness. That's the only incredible thing that we've heard here today. Obviously, people can have, in every other respect, I'll rely upon our response. People can have different interpretations. They can come into court and say this was all a joke. That's great. We are in the very beginning pre-trial stages of this case. We're doing our best to make sure that we speedily do discovery. This is not helping. We would like to get our depositions done and get Ms. Gardner in front of a jury of her peers so these wonderful arguments and these wonderful attorneys can make their arguments, stand up, argue with a jury about whether or not Ms. Gardner is guilty or not. And absent any other questions, if Ms. Stiffer wants to add anything with regard to discovery, I think she, if the court pleases on that issue.
I think this was supposed to be a Richardson hearing, so I'm going to address the prongs of Richardson. Whether there was a discovery violation. In their motion, they allege that the state failed to disclose that Ms. Jensen made statements, but that they were quote unquote a joke or made in jest, or that they weren't serious, or that they weren't an actual intention of these women to conspire to murder anybody. Defense counsel, in state's original discovery demand dated, I think, November 13th, 2023, the state disclosed a number of recorded interviews, a number of Ms. Jensen's statements, and Ms. Jensen's, the content of her text messages with Ms. Gardner, which were presented at the Arthur hearing, including a recorded interview with the Jacksonville Beach Police Department from Ms. Jensen, May 6, 2022. In that interview, she did fail to disclose to police that there were any sort of statements by either of the defendants as the ones that were actually discovered once we did a search warrant of her cell phone and once we brought her to grand jury. In a February 3rd, 2023 recorded interview with Jacksonville Beach Police, which was disclosed to defense in our initial demand, Ms. Jensen at some point during that interview tells police that she remembered Shanna Gardner saying 8 years ago, "I wish someone could shut him up," referring to Jared Brightigan, and that Ms. Jensen then spent some time telling the police that everyone who goes through an angry, bitter divorce say things that are not necessarily what you mean. She tells a story about her sister also making comments, as she reiterated here today, the same type of testimony she gave about the lunch bunch, and how people say things about their husbands all the time. So the defense has been in receipt of both of her prior recorded interviews in which she discusses the animosity between Shanna Gardner and Jared Brightigan, and which Ms. Jensen at both these interviews that are recorded, that have been in possession of defense counsel, does say the exact thing she said today, which is everybody who goes through a bitter divorce says things. They're not serious. They are made in jest. They were made out of anger. We were venting, et cetera, et cetera. So the defense has had this information that is her view or how she is skewing these communications with her best friend. I'm sure once she saw the Arthur hearing and heard the word co-conspirator be using with her name, that's probably the basis for the outrage defense counsel is speaking about.
What? She was outraged when you brought her in there.
To our
Holy
response, I
shit.
attached an email between Mr.
What a fucking cunt. No, she was outraged when y'all brought her in there in July of 2023 and you had her up there as a co-conspirator. Oh my God, the fucking tits on this broad. You a fucking lie, man. She just told you how she felt. You all fucking...
Carody and myself, which CC'd all of defense counsel for Ms. Gardner, in which Mr. Carody says, following up on our conversation yesterday, meaning with myself,
do whatever
I'm
to
going
get
to
the
seek
bad guys.
to unseal Ms. Jensen's grand jury testimony and their actual motion to unseal, which references that they were clued in to do so, so to speak, I'm paraphrasing, by the state. So Mr. Baez's motion, he had said that through due diligence of defense counsel alone, they discovered this grand jury transcript, which had all these statements that the state had not otherwise disclosed. But the fact is that Mr. Carody called me after receiving the state's discovery exhibit specifically to have a conversation about Ms. Jensen's statements, during which I advised him he should seek to unseal the grand jury transcript. And I specifically told him I did not believe it to be Brady because it was not exonerating. But it has been known to all sides because Ms. Jensen and Ms. Gardner were very close. And as Detective Johns testified during the bond hearing, when Ms. Jensen received her subpoena for the grand jury, the first phone call she made was to Hank Cox, Ms. Gardner's attorney at the time. And then while she was at the grand jury speaking to Mr. Mizrahi and I in the side room after her testimony, that she was receiving calls from Ms. Gardner over and over and over and over while we sat with her. So they've known about Ms. Jensen's statements. They've had her listed as a witness. They've had her interviews and her grand jury transcript in which she makes multiple statements.
God, she gives me Ashley Jennings vibes from the Colorado or from the Idaho 4 case. Ashley Jennings and her probably hang out in a group chat.
That old comments about taking care of Jared Brightigan or getting rid of Jared Brightigan or statements about animosity or what they would like to see happen to them were made out of anger, made out of like venting, out of resentment, and in jest. Those statements are all included in her grand jury transcript, which defense counsel received in January of 2024 after the state of Florida told Mr. Carody in a phone call, which is corroborated by his email and their own motion to unseal that transcript. So I know we brought that up in our written motion, but none of this is new. Kim Jensen is closely associated with Ms. Shanna Gardner and her defense team during the entire pendency of the investigation in this case. I disclosed jail calls of Ms. Gardner herself to her defense counsel, in which she's speaking with members of her family about how she said these things, but she never meant them not really. So this defense theory has been known to the defendant, her best friend, her prior counsel, and counsel.
Wait a second. Did she just say she was listening to lawyer conversations?
The entire time this investigation and case has been ongoing. My argument being there has been no discovery violation. There has been no Brady violation. The fact that a co-conspirator says, I'm not guilty of conspiracy is not Brady, is a self-serving statement that is disputed by the context of these text messages and the rest of the evidence that was presented at the Brady hearing.
Oh my God. Trying to say that this Kim Jensen woman is a co-conspirator to commit. I'm dead. They're still saying it. Oh my God. Hey, listen, we're going to start looking at your text messages, woman. If your husband comes up dead and you be venting to people and they say, do you want me to take care of it? Or let's get that girl on it. Or come on, we got so-and-so. We got it. You are a co-conspirator.
And it's ultimately, I can say I believe the evidence says one thing. They can say we believe it says another. Ms. Jensen can say I'm not guilty of conspiracy. Ms. Gardner can enter a plea of not guilty. It is to the finder of fact, the court in this case, ultimately the jury, previously the grand jury as to what weight they give all of those arguments. Defense counsel stated that Detective Johns made several affirmative lies on the record and said that I solicited, basically knowingly solicited false statements and
you
made false
did.
arguments to the court.
Actually, he
That
didn't.
again is simply not true. The statements about the
Wait.
truck.
Wait a second. Jose Baez did not say any names. Now you just have this conscience of guilt on you that you just have to unleash. Okay? Jose Baez says, I am not saying any names. I'm not saying any names here. Ilana Oriani, have said that Stifler was 100% leading and therefore knowing what everything, this is so hilarious.
They impeached Detective Johns with a cursory statement in his partner's written report, but they have had the recorded interview of that witness, Jeremy Ordway, in which the actual conversation between Detective Lamont and Mr. Ordway on the date of Henry Tennant's arrest is recorded. The actual content of it and whether or not what was said or not said has been disclosed to them since the state's initial discovery demand. So if they want to take a statement from a report that's a summation, the accuracy of what actually was said is reflected in that interview. And Detective Johns knew the content of that interview, even though he did not know what his partner wrote in a report. So when he's testifying, when I'm asking him questions about Mr. Ordway's knowledge of the case, the fact that detectives came to speak to him, and he said that basically he said nobody told him, hey, this truck was used in the murder of Jared Brightigan. That was based on his review of the actual recorded interview with this witness, what the witness was actually told and what the witness actually said.
Oh my God. Wait. I have the report. They went there in the morning. You were missing the 6:30 a.m. That is crazy. There's 3 reports on that day. I can't even believe that she's trying to argue this and not talk about that police report that was made at 6:30, 5:30 in the morning. I'm bad. I cannot. Oh my God. Hopefully his team catches this. I caught this. I'm not even on the goddamn team. God damn it. There's a 5:30 report. There's a 5:30. Oh my God.
Miss Lee, the text with Miss Lee were not argued by the state.
There's a 5:30 a.m. phone conversation. I'm sorry. That's in one of the reports together. So there's only 2 that day. There's not 3 reports, but there's 2. But in the first report, it has the 5:30 interaction, and then it goes into whatever time then that second encounter. I cannot.
As evidence that this was a solicitation, it was argued to show the very thing which they're arguing, to rebut this argument that Miss Jensen and Miss Gardner were just joking. Because as they're having a conversation about magicians and making things disappear, Miss Jensen reaches out to a friend to ask her, Mr. Mizrahi read those texts into the record. The court will determine whether or not you believe those texts to be a long-standing joke, or whether, based on those texts and at the time that they're being sent between Miss Jensen and Miss Lee, Miss Jensen and Miss Gardner are having a conversation about wanting him gone. I'm not even joking, quote unquote. So that is just a part of the totality of the evidence, that there was testimony at the Arthur hearing that Miss Gardner also spoke about M, quote unquote, H, quote unquote, her ex-boyfriend's, a tattoo artist, that Detective John spoke with a friend of hers who said that Miss Gardner told this friend that Mario could find, quote.
Yet none of these people were arrested. None of these people were arrested. These were people from 7 years ago.
Unquote, find 4 guys and make it look like an accident. All this is as a totality to show her state of mind and her intent.
God,
it is not the state's attempt to take one text messages out of context, call it a solicitation and walk away. We never argued it for that purpose. The purpose was to rebut the argument, which they made because they knew that Miss Jensen was somehow joking about this.
Wait,
it stops
what?
being a joke when you're talking about it with your friend and then you start reaching out to other people about it. But the court can make your determination of whether you put weight in my argument that that's what it means, or defense argument that's not what it means.
No, sorry,
but in no way did I affirmatively mislead this court, or the detective affirmatively mislead this court.
Yeah, you did.
And his testimony that there was some issue locating Ms. Lee is not untruthful. She did change her address. He and another partner reached out to her to schedule a meeting.
She did change her address. She did change her address. You see how she changed her phone number? That's what. Yeah, she did change her address. Oh, so just you guys, let me tell you what lawyers do. I could lawyer anything because I could spin anything. Okay? You can spin anything. That's what lawyering is. Spin it. Reasonable doubt.
And it was supposed to be a local law enforcement agency in the state of Michigan that did that. And it's not grossly inconsistent with what he said, that they had trouble locating her, and then he was seeking help from a colleague to speak with her. He could not remember if a colleague spoke with her or not. And by spoke with her, we all know that he's referring to an actual interview, not merely speaking with someone. Hey, I need you to come downtown. I don't live there anymore. The same thing with Miss Lucchetti, that she's saying, oh, we were willing to speak with him. He's misleading the court. And the court heard testimony that Mr. Thomas from Intrepid Group and Ms. Luchetti refused to speak as in a actual custodial, not custodial, but an actual interview about the facts rather than just saying, no thanks, call my lawyer. And then lastly, that there was some gross misconduct by myself or Detective Johns regarding the financial records. The state of Florida never, ever, ever made the argument that those records were contemporaneous with the checks, as if to say, hey, he transferred it and then he immediately wrote a check from that. Exactly what Mr. Mizrahi said. We put fuller records into evidence. That was part of.
Oh my God! I was waiting for her to address the money. We just talked about, well, then why is your red box around the $5,000 in 2021? This is absurd. And for you to even argue this, I think that the judge should be more pissed off because, or at least the judge should say this. Well, I'll take your argument as that blah, 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 but the way that you presented your case, I 100% saw it this way. So this is getting to the good stuff right here. Here we go. I want to know how she was going to explain that it was 2021, not 2022, like every single person that watched this hearing thought. Okay? Unbelievable. Let's see what she has to say.
The slideshow. The date I clearly asked, both myself and Detective Johns clearly said those records from 2021 because the argument was that Mr. Fernandez and Detective Johns testified it. Mr. Fernandez did what Detective Johns called odd things with the money and was constantly moving money around between accounts, that there were withdrawals from the irrevocable trust fund into that First Choice LLC home rentals account over time consistently prior to the murder. And the important part was those records are important. They don't correspond with the checks. They correspond with Mr. Fernandez's discussions with Henry Tennant.
Oh my God, you sick bitch. They were prepared. They were prepared if this got caught. This is called prepared. You teach somebody how to testify and what words to say. That's why he was saying that they were doing odd things with the money. Oh my God, you are a sick woman. This is sick. This is straight up nasty.
And which began in December of 2021, that he was moving the money around, beginning these discussions, and that he promised Henry Tennant, as came out from Detective John's testimony, a sum of money of $150,000, which happened to correspond with the December 2021 Christmas gift from the Gardners to Ms. Gardner and Mr. Fernandez. So I never made any attempt to mislead or state the evidence meant something that it did not mean. The records are what they are. And the state also put into evidence as further proof of her involvement, the filings for the LLC.
Do you fuck your filings? Do you think that this judge went through every fucking file? No, she relied on your motions and what you guys presented in the hearing. Well, we put the whole thing in there. This is just sick, man. Sick. I love it though. I love it. I love it. When you have an answer for your sickness instead of just like, what's she gonna say? Yep, you caught us. You know, she has to have an answer. So I just love these.
Exactly what Mr. Mizrahi said. We put fuller records into evidence. That was part of the slideshow. The date I clearly asked, both myself and Detective Johns clearly said those records from 2021 because they are.
I want to see that. There's no way because Jose Baez would have caught that. I don't believe it. I don't believe that they said 2021. And if they did, I guarantee you on my live, I would have said that the murder wasn't until 2022. No, because they even testified that it was like, he paid, like it was after. We thought that he got paid after the killing. March after, and then again in April. And then the testimony was, that he had to spread it out and we can't pay you all at once. You motherfucker. She is lying right here. She is lying. There's no way that 2021 is set in there. She has to probably maybe go down swinging. Her
argument was that Mr. Fernandez and Detective Johns testified it. Mr. Fernandez did what Detective Johns called odd things with the money and was constantly moving money around between accounts.
No, I'm going to find you it. I have the hearing. Let's just fucking listen to it right here. Oh, I don't have the time though. I got to go. Let me get through it.
Withdrawals from the irrevocable trust fund into that First Choice LLC home rentals account over time consistently, prior to the murder. And the important part was those records are important. They don't correspond with the checks. They correspond with Mr. Fernandez's discussions with Henry Tenen, which began in November and December of 2021, that he was moving the money around, beginning these discussions, and that he promised Henry Tenen, as came out from Detective John's testimony, a sum of money of $150,000, which happened to correspond with the December 2021 Christmas gift from the Gardners to Ms. Gardner and Mr. Fernandez.
Yeah,
So-
because you told him to say that, you sick fucking son of a bitches. Oh my God, this is sick. Oh my God, this is so sick. Holy shit.
I never made any attempt to mislead or state the evidence meant something that did not mean. The records are what they are. And the state also put into evidence as further proof of her involvement, the filings for the LLC, the yearly filings for 2001 and 2022 from Ms. Gardner. So those records weren't mentioned. I didn't just
Oh
put
my
in a
God.
snippet of 20
Now they're trying to say that the Gardners were involved. Do you understand what she just implied right there? Holy shit. She is saying that Shanna Gardner's parents, just that 150, here you go. Oh, this is a Christmas gift. Here you guys go. Here's your Christmas gift. There's 150 grand. But that they were talking about it in November. Oh my God. Oh my God. They're trying to mimic the Adelson case. I am disgusted. Okay, Jose, do you see how they're playing?
21 records, say they were from 2022 and try to mislead this court in any way. We put in
Yeah,
a
you
multitude
did.
of records. We talked about a multitude of financial gifts, transactions, promises, and filings for multiple years. And I have one moment, Your Honor.
Yeah, take as many as you need.
All of these records, all of these text messages, all of these transcripts, all of these interviews were provided to defense counsel in discovery
Okay.
ahead of this hearing.
She has all of this written out. How could you let me explain something to you guys. How could she possibly be ready for what Mr. Baez was going to say unless she already knew that he found out what the fuck they all did? You could not be this prepared. Jose Baez wasn't even prepared for this. She is reading from what she wrote down on her phone.
So in the Richardson aspect, Your Honor, I would ask that you deny the defense motion. There has been no discovery violation. Any information the defense says they are now aware of that they weren't previously aware of, they have had the ability to know about it. They have known about it. None of it is Brady. Ms. Jensen's self-serving, subjective opinions and beliefs are not Brady material. They don't exculpate Ms. Gardner. They're, frankly, half of them are not admissible in front of a jury. Her opinion as to the guilt or innocence of Ms. Gardner is not relevant or admissible to this court or to any finder of
We
fact.
didn't talk about her
And they're not
innocence.
material because
Wait,
the state
when did Miss Jensen talk about Shanna Gardner's? We just watched this whole fucking thing. When did she talk at all about her innocence or guilt? I'm dead. I am dead. See, this was prepared ahead of time. This was prepared ahead of time. Oh my God. Kim Jensen didn't say one time about anybody being innocent or guilty. God, this was written beforehand. I love catching people in lies.
they
Man, shut the fuck up.
acknowledged at the bond hearing. We made arguments on this being a joke versus not a joke and what the totality of the evidence suggested. The state said this is a circumstantial case and it is built on all of the evidence. Each individual
Totality.
piece of evidence can be explained away, but it's the totality of it when the court looks at with her motive, with her consciousness of guilt and her behavior after the homicide and after the arrest of Henry Tenen, that this court should look to in determining what weight to give defense arguments, that she had no knowledge, that she was joking, that she wasn't serious, and that she wasn't
Oh,
involved.
for fuck's sake.
We went through this, we argued it, they had the opportunity to do it, Your Honor considered it, in your written order, you wrote about it, and you denied it. So I'm asking Your Honor to find that there has been no discovery violation, there's nothing material and or prejudicial about any of this, and to deny the defense motion.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, she's like, sit down,
surprised.
girl.
Yeah, Judge, I'm shocked.
I'm shocked.
How long?
Huh?
Because we've been going.
No, really brief. I'll wrap it up.
Oh my God. I'm shocked. I was waiting because he couldn't, dude, he was already standing up as soon as she was getting, I'm shocked. Oh my God, it's going to be so good. How long? Because you have to give your court reporters breaks. Like you do.
Quick.
Because I'm going to give
I got you.
everybody a break.
Understood. I'll
Going
be
a long
quick.
time.
I'm just shocked. Not only do they double down on false statements, they make it worse. And I'm
Exactly that's what I'm saying. They double down. I can't even believe he's like, I'm shocked. Like, we caught you with your hand in the cookie jar, and now you are saying, and I want to see how, like, you guys, you cannot, do you know how hard it is to prepare for someone to lie? You can't prepare for this. I mean, you think that you can, but you have no idea what they're going to say. So how do you prove a negative? How do you prove that you can't prove you can't prove something? It's wild.
I'm going to be really quick and brief with my bullet points. Number one, all you have to do is, that's why I pointed out the timeline. First comes the grand jury, then they confiscate, then she turns over the phone, and then they have the text messages. It's then they have this secret meeting, or this meeting, this unrecorded meeting with a co-conspirator. So there's no way that the grand jury absolves them of their discovery violation for what occurs in the meeting after they have the text messages. It's absurd on its face. Then Mr. Mizrahi, the first thing he gets up here and says, well, this all could have been solved with an email or asking us for the bank records. If they don't have them, they could have emailed us. Well, we did. We sent them an email on May 24th of this year.
It was actually October 9, 2023, and we sent the same email in May of 2024.
So
Woo!
we're asking them for these bank records, and there's
Look at his face. Like, he looks right over. He's like, do you understand they are lying? And he's like, we asked for it October. Like, his left hand, he's got a right hand and left hand. They're really, really good. His left hand there, Crody, is awesome. He's like, we asked for that October 9th, 2023. And then we asked for it again May of 2024. Shanna Gardner was arrested in August of 2023. They asked for it twice.
still not providing them. And then he's getting up here and he says, well, why didn't you email us? Okay, maybe he just didn't know about that. But then you got the Susan Lee thing. They disclosed her. Yeah, they disclosed her at the 11th hour. The court heard arguments of that. And we were trying to exclude those text messages. And they were, they were coming at as basically arguing to the contrary why they should be admitted. She laid out her reasons for why it should be admitted, and then we have this. Then Mr. Mizrahi gets up here and he starts telling you about text messages between Miss Jensen and Susan Lee, and then the final thing is, and I have to admit this now, he starts reading, but he leaves out. He's basically trying to argue that it's not a joke, and he reads out loud right now before the court. I'm sure her ex knows a few, as a statement from Susan Lee, meaning in reference to finding a hitman. And I apologize, I jumped right to it, but Susan Lee, I'm thinking Thomas, LOL. That's from Kim. Then he isn't a magician, but I'll ask if he knows any. I'm sure he knows a few. This is her saying that her husband knows a few hitmen. Okay, that's absurd on his face. But then, while Mr. Mizrahi is telling you these, reading these text messages into the record, he leaves out the very next one after she says, "I'm sure he knows a few." The next text message is LOL. It's a joke. It's absurd. And in their PowerPoint, Judge, during the hearing, they deleted the LOL. It's not there. I'm looking at the slide right now, and it goes straight to, I'm sure he knows a few, and the next text message is, are you home? If that's not misleading you, I don't know.
Mic drop, motherfucker! Get up out of here. Do you see Crody just keep eyeing him? Like, are you seriously doing this right now? You seriously want to come at us?
What is? On top of one thing after another. That's why I'm shocked. I can't believe they're
I'm
doubling
shocked.
down and then
I'm
making matters
shocked
worse,
too.
reading text messages to you in the record and leaving out LOL to convince you of something completely different and say, no, this is, the court can make a decision based on these conversations.
It's misleading.
This is unbelievable. Then you've got the bank records. Ms. Stifler gets up here and tells you that she mentioned 2021. No, she did not. And I invite the court to read the transcripts of her questioning Detective Johns, because when this all came up, that's the first thing I did. And
he even said it. He said, So he did a hit and got no money? Who does a hit and gets no money? He said he gets paid. Yep, he got paid after. He did weird things. He did weird things with the money. So we got paid after the hit, right? Yes, he testified. I'm telling you that he got paid after the hit. I know it because I said, who the fuck gets paid in checks? Who gets paid after a hit? And then you just saw that frumpy bitch get up there and lie and say, we told you the year. We didn't. We said it was 2000. Woman. Bye. I'll tell you a place I will never hang out is Jacksonville Beach. You can't hang out in places like this when you have the area being run by these type of people. Okay?
It's clear that's what the court believed because it's in your order. Follow the money. And the court was under that impression as well. And then when you review the transcripts, you're going to notice, because I noticed this, that they give the dates, but they never give the year.
Yep.
And they're specific about the dates. March 26, excuse me. I don't know the exact date. I don't have it in front of me, but March. And then he goes into the April thing, the April bank records. And it's clear that they are attempting to mislead you into thinking that this money from the Shanna Gardner Trust went into the bank account and then it went to pay a check for tenant when you know that's absolutely false. And then finally, to talk about the issue with Ordway in the truck and that we could have used a recording to say what he actually said versus what's in a police report is I think it's a very weak argument at best, because forgive me, I have this crazy thought that a detective is going to get on the stand and tell the truth, that I won't have to impeach him, that I won't have to call him out for being a liar. But according to Ms. Stiffer, I need to have voice recordings on the ready just to be able to impeach someone and to let and for full disclosure purposes, what's in the actual transcripts and what's in the actual recording is he says tenant's truck was used in a murder in Jacksonville Beach. That's specifically what was told in that recording.
Listen,
So,
no, Jose, I'm going to write you an email. It's in the police report. He hid the 5:30. He hid the 5:30 phone call in his second police report of the day. So what it looks like is there was 3 encounters on that day. He hid the 5:30 a.m. phone call in the one police report. That's how I caught it. And I was like, oh, wow. There was an interaction at 5:30. He called him, and that's when he told him over the phone call. I'm telling you, there was a 5:30 a.m. interaction in the report that's like the 2 o'clock in the afternoon report, because there was no separate, this is our 5:30 a.m. police report. They put the 5:30 a.m. interaction with like the 2 o'clock interaction. I'll be emailing him. Don't worry. No shame in my
I don't understand
brain.
the argument. I don't understand why they would make such a claim, but certainly they certainly don't have the right to leaving out text messages in their, not only in their slides to the court at the Arthur hearing, but right here, right now, in arguing these issues, especially after seeing the court's concerns over what's being presented. So I would submit.
God, I hate liars.
I don't know what we have defense want to
Up to 4. Correct.
Are we up to 4?
Any objection?
absolute.
You'll know when we're looking at it.
Okay. That'll be marked as defense 4 for the hearing.
God, she's like, fuck, I have a decision to
I
make.
promised I'd be brief. I wasn't. Well, I tried to be. And I'll rest on that rather than give continued argument.
Unbelievable. This is sickening. Detective Johns, he has massive diarrhea. Like.
Let me see the lawyers at sidebar.
Oh shit! Look at how many go from her side. 1, 2, 3. Did what's his team leave? They may have left. Okay, so then we get here to the end. I have to go to dinner. Okay, what's going to happen? Oh wow, he stuck around the whole time. Holy shit. I'm actually happy because he should have seen it.
If the Gardner case wants to come back to sort this issue out, I'm open for that, and I can separate the two defendants. And then we can reconvene after the depositions. Is that the only deposition that you all have, which is what was set today of the minors?
Okay.
Yes.
That's all we have on calendar. We did accomplish a lot of civilian cases.
We didn't accomplish much. Wait, what? You guys, I went fishing today. Oh my
The
god.
state's preference is not to separate the defendants. I would assume that we could come back perhaps the last week in September. I'm unavailable that Friday, but I'm available the other parts of the week.
Oh, is this what they're just doing? Picking this bullshit out? I don't give a shit about that date. Oh wow, this is what she said. Okay, she's about to say something. Dude, her ruling's coming. Her ruling's coming any day. I can't
All
wait
right,
for it.
September 23rd, 8:30 a.m., 406.
Oh, wait. What's this for? September 23rd.
Third, we could do it before we
That's the depo date?
pick any juries that week,
Ooh, okay.
like 8:30 on Monday, the 23rd.
Maserati.
Yes.
I don't even know if that's his name. I'm just going to start calling him Maserati.
All right, September 23rd, 8:30 a.m., 406. Pretrial. Both cases.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Holy shit. Oh, God. So September. So, okay. That's going to be all she wrote. All right, guys. What do you guys think? I'm making a video to show you my first ever fishing experience. I think I should just wear a damn body cam because my life is just a damn fucking joke. Just when you think you cannot possibly take your fishing pole and take your hook and it somehow catch your couch, you can do it. But it was a great day. That's why we went at 4 instead of 3. Me and Jax is just, we're always just getting after it. We had a late lunch today. Now we're gonna go have our dinner. Talk about Jax's second travel soccer game. Gotta get hype. I'm the hype man. And then I'll be back later tonight with an Idaho 4 episode. I'm gonna actually start that at 10:30 tonight. I think it's at 10. Does it say it's at 10? So maybe like 10. Why not? So, but you guys, I told you this case. I promised you that this case was going to be everything that I said it was going to be. This case is crazy. This case is liars. And I mean, I think we're witnessing it, but I promise you, I'm going to go back. I'm going to pull, it's in the transcripts. They did not say 2021. I have, I'm going to pull some other stuff. I have some police reports I'm going to look at, and I'm telling you, they're hiding that 5:30 a.m. interaction. So, but love you guys. This case is a nail biter. I feel like we're watching the damn, yeah. Woo! I don't know how I find him, Leave it up to Lana. She's a magician. But again, hit the thumbs up on your way out. But this is a case you definitely want to be part of. This is not like the Adelson case. I'm telling you, like that case to me is, it's weird. This case is corruption. This case is corruption. So get in. This case is corruption. So until next time, guys, thank you guys so much. And the truth should come out for Jared Bridegan. And I don't think that you get the truth when you're doing this type of shit as detectives and prosecutors. Jared Bridegan was murdered, and he deserves the truth, and so does his family. And this isn't how you get it. So until next time, peace. Hit the thumbs up.